subscribe, like the video, and, if possible, join Patreon. But if you don't have much money, you can support the channel by watching the novels on euroaudiobooks.com. Remember that you can participate in the polls so that your favorite novel gets published for free.
Atlas lunged forward again, pursuing the victory. An unpretentious touch landed on Randall's body. Randall only felt a strong force coming from his body, and then he flew out backwards. Without the use of 6 moves, Randall would be far inferior to Atlas in terms of strength, speed, explosive power, nerve reflexes, etc. His ability to reach this level is purely the result of Atlas' failure. "You brat, you're so unlovable." Randall got up from the ground and continued walking towards Atlas, seemingly unharmed. But Lousy has another trick that you haven't seen yet. In fact, Atlas also understood Randall's intention of asking him spar. He probably wanted to teach Atlas the 6 moves he had mastered during the battle. After all, compared to his swordsmanship, his physical skills are purely supported by strong strength and high explosive power. If he masters the skills of the 6 postures, his combat effectiveness will definitely rise to a higher level. Boom, boom, boom. After a few more consecutive punches, Randall had given up his weapon. First, his swordsmanship has not yet reached the level of a swordsman, and the sword does not benefit him particularly much, and he will suffer a bit against Atlas. Second, he is afraid that his sword will be damaged by Atlas. Somewhat distressed, so he decisively abandoned his weapon and started fighting with Atlas. Sure enough, fisting to the point of physical contact is a man's romance. Haha. Atlas laughed heartily, but without stopping at all, his fists rained down quickly towards Randall. 2 hours later, Iron Body. Randall yelled, his muscles tensed up, and he swallowed Atlas' punch. Then his face turned red, and he sat on the ground slumped. Blocked, but not completely blocked. Randall obviously didn't have enough Iron Body practice, so he couldn't withstand Atlas' fist. "Old man Randall, I don't know if Marine died of Iron Body. Can your Iron Body be called Iron Body?" Atlas complained silently in his mind. "Atlas kid, are you thinking of something rude?" After the defeat, Colonel Randall stared at Atlas with an unkind expression and said, How could that be? I respect you very much, Colonel Randall." Atlas laughed. "Did you see clearly the physical skills Lousy performed just now, you brat?" Randall looked at Atlas, who was perfunctory, and his forehead couldn't help but twitch. "Of course it's no problem, but don't underestimate me, stinky old man." In the coverage area of Atlas, all of Randall's movements are basically invisible. Basically, as long as your physical fitness meets the requirements and your talent is good, you can basically get started with the 6-style technique. In the previous battle, he relied on observation hockey and his powerful learning ability to defeat Iron Body. There was no secret in his eyes. The so-called Iron Body is to accelerate blood flow and speed up muscle movement, thereby giving the body a steel-like hardness. However, the disadvantage is that it cannot move during use. Of course, this is just because the user has not mastered the skill. The Iron Body can be moved to the deepest level. Shave is to move at high speed by stepping on the ground at high speed dozens of times in a flash, 0.36 seconds, to generate explosive reaction force, which can create a one-sided situation in combat. I thought for a moment about how to practice shaving, and then my calf muscles quickly exerted force, bursting the trouser legs in an instant, turning into strips of cloth hanging on my legs. The clear muscle lines were wrapped around my legs like steel that had been tempered for thousands of times, and then quickly after stepping on the ground dozens of times, the ground beneath his feet cracked. Atlas suddenly disappeared in front of Randall's eyes and plunged into the far wall. Boom! A large human-shaped hole instantly appeared on the solid wall. Latras walked out of the hole in disgrace and said with an embarrassed look, I'm sorry. It's my first time using it, so I'm not very familiar with it yet." "Atlas kid, the maintenance fee for the venue will be deducted from your salary." Randall yelled at Atlas. He was really frightened by Atlas's powerful talent. "You said you just learned it after watching it a few times. You paid it back by using it the first time. Why does it look like Meow's explosive speed is faster than him?" The Marine soldiers watching nearby were obviously stunned by this scene, and they made strange screams without realizing it. "Brother Atlas, I want to have a discussion with you. Please let me do it." At this moment, a white-haired kid squeezed out of the crowd with sweat on his face, and then said to Atlas sincerely, this kid was Smoker. Hearing this, the Marines who were still making noises suddenly fell silent and all turned their gazes in Smoker's direction. Look who is so bold and comes out to challenge Atlas at this time. He is either stubborn or very confident in his own strength. When they found out it was Smoker, everyone looked expectant. Chapter 21 Logia Smoke Fruit. No problem, come on Smoker. Atlas was naturally aware of Marine's emotions around him. He was also very curious about what method Smoker relied on. Could it be? Smoker looked excited at first when he heard Atlas agreed, then slowly calmed down and leaned forward slightly, assuming a fighting posture. Atlas looked at the tense Smoker and laughed out loud. "Be careful, little Smoker." Atlas has always gone all out in battles, especially when his opponent was Smoker. He didn't have to save face for this brat, and could just use it to brush up on his proficiency in shaving, so Atlas had almost no reservations. He vented his power and continuously stepped on the ground with his saws, creating a huge roar. It was still too rough for shaving. Boom! Another huge pit was formed in the school grounds, and Colonel Randall's face couldn't help but look a little ugly again, but Atlas didn't care about this, since he didn't care much about money. Iron Fist Birdthorn, without a knife in his hand. Atlas simply used his fist to stab him, and the terrifying speed directly produced a roar in the air. Danger! The moment Atlas took action, the hairs all over Smoker's body stood on end, as if he was about to face the threat of death. "We'll die! We'll die!" An instinctive warning sounded in his brain. So at this critical moment, Smoker's whole body suddenly turned into a cloud of smoke, and Atlas' fist naturally missed. "Oh, so Smoker, you've already eaten devil fruit." Atlas also had a clear expression on his face. No wonder Captain Wright had that expression when he mentioned Smoker. Oh appeared, the strongest Logia devil fruit. A group of sailors watching the battle shouted excitedly. "I just ate devil fruit not long ago." Smoker, who had released his elemental form, also scratched his head in embarrassment. This devil fruit was obtained by chance when he was on a mission 6 months ago, chasing a group of pirates to a desert island. If Atlas knew this, he would still be so angry that everyone would also chase the pirates. Smoker the Kid can pick up a devil fruit, which belongs to Logia, but Atlas can only wander in the East Blue. The gap between people is sometimes bigger than the gap between people and pigs. Be careful, brother Atlas. I am Logia Smoke Fruit capable person. Smoker reminded. In Smoker's opinion, he must have won this challenge, because since he got the devil fruit, no one can hurt him, not even Colonel Randall. Poor Randall was crying and fainting in the toilet at this time. The top commander of the base was actually looked down upon by 2 brats. It's no wonder that Smoker is so swollen at this time. After all, in East Blue, which doesn't know hockey, Logia, who can't be hit solidly, symbolizes invincibility. "Then I'm going to go all out, Smoker," Atlas said, looking at the slightly excited Smoker. As soon as he finished speaking, Atlas' figure disappeared. Marine 6 styles. Shao could be said to be even more powerful to Atlas at this time. Smoker's half-baked physical skills would not be able to capture Atlas, let alone contending with it. Iron Fist Dragon Tail. This was a swinging punch, and its speed directly exceeded Smoker's neurological reaction, so he could not block this move. So, without exception, his whole body became elemental again. "Smoker, you can't do this." Although Logia's elementalization is very buggy, it is basically invincible in the early stage when you don't know how to arm colors. However, full-body elementalization requires a certain amount of physical strength, which may be negligible for those with strong physiques. However, Smoker's physique is like that of a rookie, and he probably won't be able to hold on for long, so he can only be a living target for Atlas. Smoke White Fist. Suddenly, 2 white smoke materialized, and Smoker's 2 fists rushed toward Atlas. Atlas was not afraid of him. He just fought with both fists, specializing in all the bells and whistles. But obviously Smoker hasn't done anything in the 6 months since he got the fruit. At least he has developed the fruit's ability a little bit. Boom! Another collision, directly turning Smoker's two fists into smoke. This made Smoker a little depressed. Obviously, Smoker was completely defeated in the physical duel. If he wanted to win this battle, he could only start with fruit abilities. Time gradually passed by, and Smoker used the full-body elemental transformation several more times, but his forehead was already slightly sweaty. It was obvious that he had exhausted a lot of physical strength. On the other hand, Atlas looked calm and composed. There was no change in appearance or even breathing, which made Smoker a little discouraged. What two powerful brats! Smoker looks like he's dying. Hey, Smoker's ability is invincible. The soldiers watching the battle all started arguing excitedly, and even looked like they were about to start a fight. They didn't expect these two young brats to be so powerful, especially Atlas, who could actually push the legendary Logia Demon Fruit power to this point with pure physical skills. Ever since word spread that the three major marine monsters, Vice Admiral, are all Logia Demon Fruit powers, Logia is almost being sought after by people. And Atlas, a strong man who relies purely on physical skills, is the man who broke the myth in the eyes of these soldiers. Boom, boom, boom. After a few more collisions, Smoker clenched his already trembling fists with determination flashing in his eyes. Be careful, Brother Atlas. I have to use my newly developed abilities, and I may not be very proficient yet. Smoke White Domain. As soon as he finished speaking, Smoker's whole body turned into elements. The huge white smoke directly enveloped Atlas, and the visibility instantly dropped to the extreme. Marine outside the field could not clearly see the fighting situation between the two, and Atlas, who was surrounded, found that in Smoker's white domain, all the senses were reduced to the lowest point, and even his eyes were almost so smoked that he could not open them. Some small, white smoke particles even tried to get into Atlas's nose along with his breath. Atlas suddenly became alert, slowed down his breathing, closed his eyes tightly, and used his sense of sight to sense Smoker's attack. This kind of large-scale AoE Smoker will definitely not last long, so he will definitely use a quick attack method. Atlas just needs to wait and wait. Suddenly, a fist quietly appeared behind Atlas. Smoker obviously wanted to give Atlas a sap, but all this was invisible under the cover of Atlas' sight. After Smoker's fist got close to Atlas' attack range, Atlas turned sideways and grabbed Smoker's fist hard. Smoker was in pain and quickly transformed into elements. This rogue style of play makes Atlas very helpless. After all, he still doesn't know how to arm himself, so he can't keep Smoker's body at all, so he can only wear down his physical strength step by step. Chapter 22 on the importance of physical fitness. Boom. 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 The collision between the two continued, and Smoker's attacks became more and more urgent, because all his attacks were blocked by Atlas calmly. Finally, after all his energy was exhausted, Smoker was forced to withdraw from the elementalization and collapsed on the ground. Atlas still had no change, except for a little sweat on his forehead, and he didn't look like Smoker. Embarrassed. This can't help but make Smoker a little frustrated. Since he got the smoke fruit that he is proud of, basically every pursuit mission has been completed easily. In addition, Atlas is not in the base, so there is no one in the base who is Marine. To be able to defeat him, even Colonel Randall of the base competed with him privately, but could not do anything to him. So Smoker swelled and became even more addicted to the glory brought to him by the Logia Devil Fruit. Smoker has always admired Atlas and envied Atlas's powerful talent. However, he also knew that Atlas's powerful strength came from hard training. However, as a person of the same age, he also has the characteristics of teenager. People have pride and desire to win. So when they see Atlas coming back, they immediately challenge him, just like a child who gets a beloved toy and wants to show it to his big brother. Okay, Smoker, cheer up. Justice is not so superficial. Atlas looked at the somewhat depressed Smoker and couldn't help frowning and comforting him. In fact, Smoker's talent is quite good. Logia's smoke fruit is also a powerful devil fruit. Once developed, it will have extremely strong dominance. Smoke fruit is not as weak as seen in the previous anime. It is purely Smoker. The development is too rubbish. If the current Smoker continues like this, it may really waste this powerful fruit ability. So Atlas feels it is necessary to wake him up. And Smoker's physical talent is not bad, but after getting Devil Fruit, he relied too much on Logia's powerful ability, thus neglecting physical training, which caused dissatisfaction on both sides. The most exaggerated thing is that he actually practiced a kind of hockey in his 30s. If you don't master it, you basically lose the qualification to compete for the top experts. Listen, Smoker, you've gone astray now. Smoker, who was still autistic at first, immediately raised his head when he heard these words, feeling a little unhappy in his heart. Yes, that's right. You Atlas are much stronger than me. That's because the time I got the fruit was too short. When my fruit ability is fully developed, I will definitely be able to defeat you. Atlas looked calmly into Smoker's angry eyes and said mercilessly, I know, you must be thinking that you could defeat me after the fruit power is developed. Smoker paused after hearing this, but his eyes remained stubborn. If you still have this idea now, you will never be able to catch up with my strength. You have to understand that in this cruel sea, there is no top strong person who can reach the top simply by relying on fruit ability. Remember, it's anything. Upon hearing this, not only did Smoker look like he was listening carefully, but the soldiers around him also held their breath subconsciously, for fear of missing a word. Looking at the sea, whether it is the powerful pirate overlord or the current three monsters of the marine, Vice Admiral, although they all possess powerful devil fruit abilities, their bodies stand at the top of the sea without exception. Even the strongest man in the world, Whitebeard Edward Newgate's shock fruit, is called the strongest Paramecia devil fruit because his user is Whitebeard, not some cat or dog. So it was Whitebeard who made shock fruit, not shock fruit makes Whitebeard. Atlas glanced around with a stern look and continued. Let's talk about our Marine. Marine hero Vice Admiral Garp has forced the pirate King Roger into desperate situations several times with his physical skills alone. Mr. Zephyr, the former Marine Admiral, is the youngest Admiral in Marine, and he is known as Black Arm. He is also famous all over the world for his physical skills. As for the current three monsters in Marine, Vice Admiral, like Smoker, you are Logia's demon fruit power, and you're also the top Logia. But even Kizaru Vice Admiral, who doesn't pay much attention to physical skills, is also a great swordsman. He's physically strong. It's also a monster level. Atlas glanced at Smoker without any trace. After all, Smoker was considered the leader of his peers more than 10 years later. And because of his Logia ability, Marine has always been regarded as Admiral's successor. But in Atlas's eyes, Smoker is really far behind Admiral. Also, aside from these strong men, using Devil Fruit requires physical strength. If you are weak, you will be exhausted and out of breath after using it for a while like Smoker. How can you execute your justice? Yes, Atlas Kid is right. Physical fitness is the foundation of everything, whether it is demon fruit power, physical skills, or sword skills. Colonel Randall, who was watching the play on the side, spoke, and Randall's eyes were undoubtedly vicious. In fact, he had long realized that Smoker was going astray and wanted to remind Smoker, but the embarrassing thing was he didn't know how to arm himself. There was no way to defeat Smoker, and there was no point in educating Smoker. So in the end, it was nothing. Until Atlas comes back. Okay, don't stand here and watch. Smoker, go back and reflect on it. Randall spoke and drove away the people watching the excitement. Atlas also left the school grounds and went to the cafeteria to eat, leaving Smoker alone. His face kept changing, but Randall didn't care. Smoker was Marine, is a very talented person. Although he is a little worse than Atlas, he is not a person who likes to get into trouble. So, it is up to him. Thinking of Atlas Randall, subconsciously looking at the potholes on the ground, Chnin couldn't help but feel emotional. What a scary little devil. Atlas here has already arrived at the base canteen. He hasn't eaten the food cooked by Uncle Carl for a long time. Uncle Carl, give me an appetizer for 5 people first. After Atlas sat down, he shouted loudly to Carl, who was busy in the kitchen. It's your kid. I haven't seen you, kid, for a long time. I thought you died outside. When Carl saw that it was Atlas, he couldn't help laughing and cursing. But Atlas could clearly feel that Carl's expression became much more relaxed, as if the things that were weighing on his heart instantly dissipated. Chapter 23, A Good and Sharp Knife Works 50 Times. Snow Walk 3 months later, East Blue, Lobetown Marine Colonel's office. Boom! A violent sound of opening the door startled Colonel Randall, who was busy writing at his desk. When he looked up, it was Atlas, and he suddenly became furious. You brat, this is the 3rd door you've broken this month. Okay, I'll go back and ask the logistics for reimbursement. Alice was still smiling and said casually. Randall had nothing to do with this guy, so he had to take out a few wanted posters from his desk and throw them to Atlas. Okay. Next time you come in, remember to open the door softly and knock on the door. This is your mission this time. The Horton Pirates and the Horton Pirates, who all have a bounty of 30 million belly and 35 million belly Lee's Bloody Hand Pirates. At least a few are left alive. Alice has been chasing pirates since he came back. With his current strength, the pirates in East Blue are really not enough. Atlas is also willing to accept Randall's mission. Anyway, he is saving money now. Buy a famous knife and just earn some bonus. In a few months, the new recruit training camp will begin. Then go to the headquarters with Smoker. During this time, practice hard and don't embarrass our Logue Town base. Randall looked at Atlas, who was flipping through the wanted posters, and said earnestly, Well, I get it. By the way, can the mission you assign me be a little difficult? Except for the captains of these 2 pirate groups, who are a bit powerful. What else are they? Alice put down the bounty order and said with slight dissatisfaction, Just be content, kid. I've given you the hardest part to crack. There's nothing you can do about it. The pirates in East Blue are only at this level. Randall also said helplessly, Atlas's strength has grown too fast, and the pirates of East Blue have no training effect on him. Okay, then I'll go and deal with him first. Atlas has always been a resolute person, without any hesitation. Go away, you brat. Atlas, who had just returned from his mission, was standing at the port. He was holding a bloody sack in his hand, and traces of a human face could be vaguely seen. Hey, Atlas, you're back from a mission. How about it? Atlas, you're not hurt. What are you talking about? Captain Atlas is the strongest person in the base. How can a mere pirate hurt him? People who knew Atlas greeted him one after another on the road, and Atlas responded with a smile and nod. There was nothing he could do about it. It was annoying to be too popular. After going to Randall to complete the work report and handing over the reward, Atlas looked at the thick wad of bills in his hand and grinned widely with satisfaction. In Logue Town, Commercial Street, a tall Marine young officer walked into a weapons store. The owner of the weapons store was a middle-aged man who looked to be in his 40s or 50s. When he saw Atlas walking in, he immediately enthusiastically welcoming him. Welcome to our store. How can I serve you? Atlas looked around, and finally his eyes fell on the boss. He paused and said, I want to buy a better knife, preferably a good and fast knife for 50 labors. The middle-aged boss smiled awkwardly and said, Guest, you are joking. Our shop operates on a small budget, so how can we get a sword of the quality and sharpness level? Alice was a little disappointed. A sword of ordinary quality couldn't withstand his tossing. He clearly remembered that in the anime, Zoro got 2 famous swords in Logue Town. However, Atlas had forgotten the name of the store. He only remembered that the owner claimed that it was a 200-year-old store, so Atlas could only look for it one by one. Maybe he would be lucky enough to find it. A few hours later, Atlas looked at the weapons store in front of him. There was no name, only 2 knives intertwined as a sign. But he has given up hope. This is already the 10th store he has been looking for. There is nothing to gain in the future. Weapons of the level of good swords are too rare. That means Zoro can only encounter famous swords if he has the halo of the protagonist. Walking straight to the weapons store, what I met was a young man with a half-bald head, a few hairs still struggling, a bit like Jean Kouei's temples, and a nose. Young man, it should be a young man, Atlas. Not really sure either. The boss looked at Atlas with a flattering smile on his face. Welcome. You can take a look and choose slowly. We are an old store that has been in business for 200 years. Atlas was stunned for a moment and found it. The boss told everyone that it was a 200-year-old store. Boss, do you have a good fast knife? Money is not an issue. Atlas recited the lines he had said countless times. Huh? Are you Captain Kanos? The boss seemed to know Atlas and seemed to be an admirer of Atlas. Huh? "Ah, yes, I am Atlas." Atlas was a bit dumbfounded, but he also felt reassured. Originally, he was worried that the boss would not sell him the treasure of the store. Then, does your store have any good sharp knife-level knives? Atlas was afraid that the boss would be too excited and not hear what he said, so he asked again. Yes, yes, the boss nodded and replied, fearing that Atlas would disappear from his eyes if he spoke too late. Then he turned around and ran upstairs panting, holding a long box and showing it to Atlas as if he were offering a treasure. This is our store's treasure, the Ryokai sword Yukisukaru. The blade is made of black lacquer tachi, and the blade is a small T-shaped blade. It is the best knife in our store. The boss introduced with a serious look. How many Baileys? Atlas asked. No money. The person I admire most is you, Captain Kanos. How much money does a man need to entrust his dreams to a man? The boss said with a confused look on his face. No. As a Marine, I must give you money. This is my principle. Atlas said firmly, as if you don't want money and I won't take your knife. Then, why don't you, Captain Kanos, sign your name for me as payment? The boss was also in a dilemma, and finally came up with such a compromise. Suddenly, Atlas seemed to think of something, and stood up and walked toward some buckets filled with swords placed in the corner. Atlas vaguely remembered that Zoro's third generation ghost was found in the trash. Master Kanos, the buckets over there are full of 50,000 belly knives. The boss looked nervous and thought he had said something wrong. Atlas waved his hand to signal his boss not to be nervous. Then his eyes flashed red, and the color of seeing and hearing was turned on. An evil aura appeared in his range of perception, and then he grabbed it casually, and a long knife with a red scabbard appeared in Atlas's hand. But at this time, the boss's face became extremely ugly. Chapter 24, Demonic Sword. Third generation Kitetsu. Atlas looked up and down at the knife in his hand. It looked no different from an ordinary knife in appearance. But in Atlas' perception, the whole knife gave off a strange aura. No, Captain Kanos, I can't give you this knife. The shop owner, whose face had become frighteningly gloomy, saw Atlas's satisfied expression and couldn't help but stop him loudly. This sword is called third generation Kitetsu. Its predecessor, second generation Kitetsu, was a powerful sword, and the previous first generation Kitetsu was a supremely powerful sword, but it's a demon sword, right? Atlas took over the conversation before the shop owner finished speaking and said calmly, You know. The shop owner was obviously a little surprised. Yes, I feel it, Atlas said while looking at the third generation in his hand. Starting from the first generation Kitetsu, the sword of the Kitetsu sect are all very good, but every one of them is a demon sword. Many swordsmen have died miserably after wearing that Kitetsu. Now there is no sword in the world. Sure is using Kitetsu, because even if he uses it without knowing it, he will disappear from this world. If I sell this knife to you, I will harm you. The boss was a little anxious. His forehead was even covered with sweat for fear that Atlas would not be able to get rid of this demonic knife. Atlas just smiled confidently at this and said, Every sword has its own personality. Weak swordsmen who lack strength and courage become afraid of some swords because they cannot control them, and argue that they are afraid of being cursed. In these swords it is called the demon sword. This is what Koshiro told Atlas, and it is said that Koshiro's father told him, Ha 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 ha, I want to become the strongest man in the world, and I want to use this demon sword to test my strength. Atlas laughed, and an overbearing aura suddenly burst out from him. The shop owner was immediately shocked. It turned out that this was the courage of a truly strong man. Finally, Atlas walked out of the weapon shop with satisfaction, holding a long sword with a red sheath on his waist. It was none other than third-generation Kitetsu. Under the boss's repeated pleading, Atlas finally did not take away Shue's Zai and secretly kept all the money he had on him. Before leaving, he meaningfully said to the boss, Shue's Zai will wait until he really is the master. Anyway, Atlas is not a two-sword swordsman, so he can just take a famous sword, and he likes the domineering spirit of third-generation Kitetsu, which suits him very well. The sea is tolerant. She always swallows up all the good and bad things silently, but is also cruel. The sea water under the bright sunshine reflects the golden light, and the waves are like a naughty child, jumping unsteadily. A marine warship was sailing smoothly on the sea, and Atlas was sitting on the deck of the warship, carefully wiping third-generation Kitetsu with a cotton ball. The maintenance of swords is also very important, especially for famous swords. Third-generation Kitetsu is Atlas's true first sword, so Atlas takes good care of it. However, weapons also need to drink blood, especially demon swords, and today Atlas brought third-generation Kitetsu to see the blood. Report to Lieutenant Colonel Atlas. We have arrived near the sea area where the Garfield pirates operate and are about to meet them, one of Atlas' subordinates reported. By the way, the appointment at the headquarters has arrived in Logue Town, and Atlas has been appointed as the base lieutenant colonel. Great, keep going, Atlas replied before continuing to maintain his beloved knife. Soon, the warship continued sailing for more than 10 minutes, and its speed gradually slowed down. Reporting to Lieutenant Colonel, the Garfield pirates have been spotted ahead. The scout at the watchtower looked at the pirates who were gradually approaching and said with a serious face. But he wasn't too worried because Garfield, the strongest member of the Garfield pirates, was only a mere 30 million pirate, and their lieutenant colonel killed several of these things. Oh, bring the boat closer to me. Everyone is here. Get ready for a boarding battle. When Atlas saw the traces of the pirates, he immediately put away the knife in his hand, quickly stood up and gave the order. In the Garfield pirates in the distance, a middle-aged man with a sinister face was spitting about his so-called glorious experience. It was Anthony, the first mate of the Garfield pirates. Lousy killed more than a dozen people in the town we robbed last time. The way the residents looked at me. Next to him, Garfield stood listening with a smile, with a touch of cruelty on his face from time to time. Hi, Marina's coming. Second Officer Grant, who was looking at the scenery on the bow of the ship, spotted the approaching warship and screamed in fright. It's too late. Atlas glanced at the distance between the two ships, then used his legs to force a hole in the deck and rushed towards the Garfield pirates with an explosive attitude like a cannonball. What a joke. This scene immediately frightened the entire Garfield pirates in a horror. Wait until Atlas lands firmly on the bow of the ship, and then pull out the third-generation Kitetsu in his hand. The bright sword flashed, and Second Officer Grant felt a light touch on his neck, and then watched helplessly as blood spurted out from his neck. Demon knife. Drink blood. Atlas flicked the blade, and the hot blood fell smoothly onto the ship, scaring everyone into a cold sweat. Rush. At this moment, the warship also docked on the Garfield pirates' ship, and groups of fighting marines rushed along the side of the ship and rushed towards the pirates. This is a battle plan that Atlas has made long ago. Although he can kill all the pirates here alone, he is not the nanny of the soldiers. They also have to go through the baptism of the battlefield to become stronger. In war, there is no immortal person. Thinking of this, Atlas's eyes suddenly became sharp, and he looked at Captain Garfield and First Mate Anthony. The third-generation ghost in his hands was standing upright in front of him, holding in front of him with one hand and holding it behind his back in the other hand. One sword flow blade return. The sword was like lightning, and before the two of them could react, Atlas's knife had already severed the main artery in their necks. He killed the captain and the others. Oh, what should I do? I'm going to die. The pirates suddenly became depressed, and their morale continued to be low. On the other hand, Marines' morale was greatly boosted, and they slashed their weapons crazily, becoming more and more courageous as they fought. Soon, the rest of the Garfield pirates were killed. As for Marine, no one died. Only a few people were slightly injured. Although Atlas would not protect them like a nanny, he would not watch them die in battle either. Chapter 25, Cow Talisman. The clear blue sky reflected on the deep sea. Atlas and others sailed slowly along the route back to Logue Town. Hey, do you think the knife I just struck is cool or not? No matter how handsome you are, he is not as handsome as me. I have killed many pirates. I will definitely be promoted when I go back. By the way, Lieutenant Colonel Atlas is really powerful. He eliminated the main combat power of the Garfield pirates with 2 swords. Of course, even if a monster like Lieutenant Colonel Atlas is placed in naval headquarters, he will still be a monster among monsters. Marine on the warship was still immersed in the victory just now, and the chatter of discussions was endless. After all, it was a victorious battle without any casualties. Basically, many of them could get the credit this time back. Naval headquarters. Atlas, who was lying on the deck basking in the sun, also smiled when he heard this, and then slowly raised his hand to his eyes. The strong sunlight fell on Atlas's face through the gaps between his fingers, and the originally tough lines suddenly disappeared. It softened. Logtown Marine School grounds. A white-haired boy with his muscular upper body exposed was leapfrogging around the school grounds. The sweat on his body couldn't stop flowing down in streams. His determined eyes were staring straight ahead. It was none other than Smoker himself. Since being woken up by Atlas last time, Smoker has been pestering Atlas to take him to train every day. But the physical difference is too big. Smoker can't keep up with Atlas's rhythm, so Atlas suggested that he let's start with physical fitness. Smoker was originally a genius. After exercising his body, he became much stronger, and the development and use of the fruit became much easier. This made Smoker more determined to choose to exercise his body. Report to Lieutenant Colonel. The front is about to arrive at Logue Town. Atlas and others sailed on the sea for 2 days, and finally they were about to return to Logue Town. After several days of sailing back and forth, Atlas almost felt like a bird in his mouth, so Atlas decided to return to Logue Town. I want to give him a treat at the Five Zong Temple. Everyone obeys the order. Be ready to dock at any time. Atlas stood up and gave the order, looking far away at the approaching Logue Town. Yo, Smoker, you kid, is exercising. Atlas had just left the colonel's office and was about to come to the school grounds to do some pre-meal exercises when he saw Smoker sweating profusely and couldn't help but joke. Yes, brother Atlas. Also, could you please give me some advice later? Smoker was stunned for a moment when he saw Atlas, and then said shyly, Ha, no problem. I'm just here to test your growth during this period. Atlas replied cheerfully. After an hour, Atlas folded his arms and looked condescendingly at Smoker, who was lying on the ground with a tired look on his face. He smiled and said, Not bad, Smoker. Your physical fitness has improved a lot, but there is still a big gap between you and brother Atlas. Smoker was obviously a little frustrated. He felt like Atlas was like a bottomless pit, and he couldn't find its depth no matter what. Well, okay, I'll treat you to dinner later. Cheer up, Atlas said nonchalantly, and then pulled Smoker away from the base. A restaurant in Logue Town. Atlas and Smoker sat down one after another. After serving all the dishes on the menu, Atlas began to eat hazelnuts, while Smoker was more civilized. It seemed that Smoker in his teenage years was not like a teenager. You will be so wild and uninhibited later in the year. Brother Atlas, how can I become as strong as you? After drinking and eating, Smoker took out a cigarette from nowhere and started smoking in front of Atlas. Hiccup Smoker, what is your justice? Atlas burped with satisfaction, but instead of answering Smoker's question directly, he asked slowly, Is my justice? Smoker's eyes showed confusion. Don't think too much. You'll find your justice later. Atlas patted Smoker's shoulder to express comfort and went directly to the front desk to check out. In fact, belief is a very strange thing in the pirate world. Basically, everyone standing on the top of the sea has his own belief. This belief does not have to be particularly grand, just like Whitebeard's belief is to have a family, and Marine's belief is justice. But because every Marine has different experiences, the justice they believe in is also different. Like Akainu, he believes in absolute justice, while Akiji is lazy justice, and Kizuru is ambiguous justice. But there is no doubt that belief is very important to become a top strong person. Like Marine's former Admiral Zephyr. Although he was known as the youngest admiral when he became an admiral, he was just a soldier until he was 28 years old. Could it be that such a character would remain unknown in 28 years? According to Atlas's guess, belief should be related to hockey's practice, because in the memory of the past life, Rayleigh said that haki is a power hidden in everyone in the world, but most people are unable to exert it throughout their lives. Faith refers to a will that one firmly believes in and is implemented from beginning to end. There is no distinction between likes and dislikes, and the key to haki's guidance is probably faith. Of course, the above are all Atlas's guesses, and Atlas cannot be sure of the specific situation. As night falls, everything is shrouded in darkness, including people's hearts. Atlas sat cross-legged on the bed, his consciousness focused on the dim spell in his mind. Yes, Atlas is ready to light up his next spell. 4 years have passed since he lit the first talisman. With his current physique, he has reached the standard of carrying 2 talismans. The reason for hesitation now is that he has been wavering between the cow talisman and the rabbit talisman. But if the talisman works for him, as he imagined, the ox talisman is his best choice at the moment. Therefore, Atlas slowly focused his consciousness on the ox talisman, and the blue lines suddenly glowed with white light. Soon, Atlas felt the power given to him by the ox talisman flowing slowly through his body. The muscles all over his body contracted suddenly and became tighter. Chapter 26: The Secret and Departure of the Talisman East Blue, Logtown. On the other side of the island where Logtown belongs, there is a wooden stake stuck on the edge of the coast, with a marine soldier guarding it. A thick hemp rope was tied to the wooden stake, and the other end of the rope stretched into the sea. A figure could be vaguely seen in the water, paralyzed. Wow! Suddenly, Marine on the shore struggled to pull up the rope and drag the figure out of the sea with difficulty. It was Smoker. This exercise method was taught to him by Atlas. He didn't make it up out of thin air. He originally wanted to use sea stone to carry weights, but this strategic resource was too scarce in East Blue, and the headquarters did not give it to Logtown at all. It is equipped, so it can only use seawater. The pressure in the deep sea can not only strengthen the body, but also strengthen Smoker's resistance to the sea stone factor. Otherwise, he will not be defenseless if he is accidentally exposed to sea stone in the future. Captain Smoker, you lasted 1 minute longer than last time. A Marine next to him said happily to Smoker. Smoker has been doing this training for several months. From the time he was paralyzed at the beginning to now, he is still paralyzed. The Marine soldiers guarding the side came to help because they were worried that Smoker would lose strength in the sea and be unable to get up. Smoker didn't answer and leaned against the wooden pile, looking at the sea in the distance with lingering fear. His sight seemed to be through the cold water. I saw that muscular figure. Captain Smoker, don't compare yourself to Lieutenant Colonel Atlas. He is a monster among monsters. Marine on the side saw this and quickly comforted him. And in the distance, thousands of meters below the surface of the sea, Atlas's body was suspended in the cold water. The surroundings were dark, with only a few small sea kings swimming by from time to time, proving signs of life activity. Pressure from all directions surged towards Atlas. But Atlas's expression did not change at all. With Atlas' current physical fitness, holding his breath underwater for half an hour is not a problem, and the pressure of the deep sea can mold his body like steel. Atlas felt the changes in his body carefully and then confirmed them with his thoughts. Sure enough, after completely digesting the horse talisman, Atlas discovered that the horse talisman had become his physical talent, and he only needed to consume energy to repair his body. So, he had a bold idea. Is the zodiac charm similar to the Paramecia devil fruit, divided into superhuman bodies and superpowers? Then he classified the zodiac charms: rat, tiger, dragon, snake, monkey, chicken, dog, and pig can give Atlas superpowers, while ox, rabbit, horse, and sheep can give him superpowers. Atlas had gone to waterfalls for training and also used wooden sticks to hit him, but in the end he found that the effect of the deep sea was the best because the pressure it put on Atlas was all round without any bias. After lighting up the cow talisman for practice, Atlas found that his whole body's muscle density, bone density, and visceral strength were all increasing at a slow rate. It can be said that the cow talisman was transforming his body's potential. Once the ox talisman completely disappears from his mind, he will probably have the strongest talent in the world. Just like Big Mom's steel balloon with terrifying defensive power, Atlas will have the gift of giant strength, even more exaggerated power than the young Whitebeard. Of course, the body's defense is not bad. It's just not as exaggerated as the steel balloon. Captain Smoker, Lieutenant Colonel Atlas Ka, Vice Admiral Garp is here. Colonel Randall calls you over. A Marine ran up to Smoker panting and said, I know. Let me call you Brother Atlas. No, I understand. Atlas coverage area had already heard what the Marine said, and he immediately dragged his wet body onto the shore. But Atlas was a little surprised. Why did Garp personally come and pick them up and take them to the headquarters? Soon, Atlas and Smoker changed their clothes and ran to the Logtown port. I saw Randall talking respectfully to a Marine who looked about the same age as him. It was none other than Marine hero Garp. Yo, Atlas Brat, it's really easy for me to wait. Garp also saw Atlas not far away, picking his nostrils with one hand and waving his other hand to say hello. Vice Admiral Garp, why are you here in person? Atlas motioned to the excited Smoker to follow him, and then walked quickly towards Garp. I just happened to go back to East Blue for a vacation to see my grandson. I stopped by to pick you up. Garp said nonchalantly. Atlas, Smoker, you two brats come to headquarters and behave well. Don't embarrass our Logue town. Randall also warned with a serious expression. Yes. Atlas and Smoker responded with a respectful military salute. Okay, it's time for us to set off. I wonder if you have any of Sengoku's donuts left for me? Ha 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 ha, Garp said without any image, then turned and walked towards the ship, leaving behind a tall figure. Atlas and Smoker also waved their hands and followed. Dividing line, oh wow, Vice Admiral Garp, I really admire you. Can you sign your autograph for me? Vice Admiral Garp, can you tell me about capturing the Pirate King? As soon as Smoker got on the boat, he pestered Garp and asked questions excitedly, which made Atlas want to pretend that he didn't know this guy. Hey, you brat, please be quiet. Perhaps Garp was tired of being harassed, so he hit Smoker on the head with an iron fist. In an instant, a big hot bag appeared in the middle of Smoker's white hair, which looked quite funny. Report Vice Admiral Garp, about to cross the red line and enter the comm belt. At this time, a messenger came over to report the progress of the warship. Okay, I know, instead of taking the route up the upside-down mountain to enter the Grand Line, Marine went directly to Naval Headquarters via the comm belt. As for how to avoid the attack of the Sea Kings in the comm belt, we need to rely on Dr. Vegapunk, a scientist who claims to have 500 years of wisdom beyond humankind. It is to inlaid sea stone on the bottom of the ship to deceive the perception of the Sea Kings, making them mistakenly think that the warship is part of the seawater. However, this cannot completely avoid the attack of the Sea Kings. If you're unlucky and happen to be hit head-on by a Sea Kings, there will be nothing you can do. Crash! Just as Chow Chow was about to arrive, a Sea Kings nearly 800 meters in size surfaced and was about to collide with the warship. But the sailors on the warship all looked indifferent. It was impossible to be afraid. This was the ship of Marine hero Garp. Atlas Brat, I leave it to you. I could take a nap. Few after Garp said this to Atlas. He stood there and snored. The soldiers around were so shocked that their jaws dropped. Is it really okay for this kind of thing to be so casual? Chapter 27 Naval Headquarters. Marine Fort. How willful you are, Vice Admiral Garp. Atlas was a little helpless when he heard this, but he still pulled third-generation Kitetsu out of his waist and let the tip of the knife hang down. One sword-style Longxiang divine power. A blood-red slash flew from top to bottom toward the giant Sea Kings, and huge power was released crazily on the Sea Kings. In an instant, the sea water was stained red with blood, and the huge Sea King's corpse slowly emerged from the water. The slash almost cut the giant Sea Kings in half, causing everyone on the warship to take a breath. Sorry, I accidentally used too much force. I'll give you an extra meal tonight. Atlas slowly sheathed the knife, turned around, and smiled at everyone. Atlas, let's learn the art of swordsmanship if we have a chance. Bogart on the side was also a little shocked. The last time he saw Atlas, he had not reached the realm of cutting iron. Although his swordsmanship was not exquisite now, The power of this slash really made him a little stunned. Ha ha, I will definitely do it if I have the chance. Atlas nodded in response after hearing this. It can be said that he is working behind closed doors and has never fought against other swordsmen. Although Bogart is Garp's adjutant, Atlas will not underestimate him. You must know that Garp's last adjutant was the current Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral Akiji. However, they will not fight on the warship now. The destructive power of the swordsman is quite terrifying. Once they fight, it is still a question whether they can reach the headquarters safely. The dog-headed warship sailed on the sea along the route for several days and finally arrived at the destination of this trip. Naval Headquarters, Marineford. When I saw Marineford in the anime in my previous life, I didn't have much of an impression, but now facing this towering building, the visual impact it gives Atlas is unparalleled. The rolling waves are constantly beating against the crescent-shaped harbor. A series of sophisticated warships surround the solid barrier. The soldiers with solemn expressions and the flying seagull flag show their great majesty. This is Naval Headquarters, Marineford. It is a place that scares countless pirates. Whether it is Golden Lion, the overlord of the old era, or Roger, the pirate king who started a new era, they all failed here, since Roger was executed in Logue Town 5 years ago. Although the situation on the sea has become increasingly corrupt, Marine's power has also reached its peak. And this is also the starting point for Atlas to enter the world stage. The era of great pirates will be ended by Atlas. Garp's ship slowly docked at Marineford's port, instantly causing a certain commotion. After all, Garp's dog-headed warship was so eye-catching that most of the soldiers at Naval Headquarters knew it. Soon, the colonel who was on duty at the headquarters ran over, stood respectfully in front of Garp, gave a standard military salute, and said, "Vice Admiral Garp, Colonel Hayes of the headquarters is requesting instructions. Take these 2 recruits to get familiar with the headquarters." Garp smiled and patted Colonel Hayes' shoulder hard, then pointed at Atlas and Smoker and said, Colonel Hayes was stunned. "Who is this?" It was such a big honor that Vice Admiral Garp personally came to the headquarters. "Yes," Colonel Hayes responded loudly. Although he was a little confused, he still didn't ask more questions, but wanted to get something out of the 2 recruits later. "Come with me. I'll take you around Marineford to familiarize yourself with the environment. By the way, you're here to participate in the recruit training camp," Hayes said gently while looking at the 2 people next to Vice Admiral Garp. "Yes, Colonel Hines." Atlas and the 2 did not dare to neglect. Although Atlas's military rank was lieutenant colonel, he was in East Blue. According to the rules, the same military rank in the headquarters is 3 levels higher than that of the Sea High branch. So now Atlas, the military rank, should be captain of the headquarters. Then I'll leave these 2 brats to you. I'm going to find old man Sengoku," Garp said and walked towards Sengoku's office. "Let's go. Let me take you to the recruiting camp to report first." Colonel Hayes waited for Garp to leave his sight and greeted the 2 of Atlas. In Sengoku's office, Sengoku is discussing with Vice Admiral Tsuru the next step of Marine's layout. A man with curly hair, wearing an eye patch, is sitting next to him with a lazy expression, as if he is about to fall asleep at any moment. It is Marine Vice Admiral Akiji. Boom! Suddenly, a loud sound of opening the door interrupted the conversation between Sengoku and he. When he saw that the person was Garp, Sengoku's forehead suddenly jumped, and his expression gradually became unkind. "Copy you. You still know how to come back." Garp turned a deaf ear to Sengoku's question and said nonchalantly, "I'm going on vacation to see my grandson. I will definitely train him into a powerful sailor." "How dare you say that none of your monkey family can worry?" Sengoku was even more furious when he heard Garp mention his family education. He had just received information that the Boy Dorag had established a revolutionary army organization. Now it has attracted great attention from the world government, and the 5 elders have questioned him. On the head. Kazan is here too. Seeing that Sengoku was angry, Garp pretended not to hear, and quickly changed the subject and used Akiji as a shield. Mr. Garp. Akiji was also helpless, but he still had to push the eye mask up to his forehead to continue talking. I found a monster in East Blue who is more talented than you. Seeing Akiji's lack of interest, Garp couldn't help but pick up Atlas and show off. Oh, really? Since he is someone whom Vice Admiral Garp respects, I must get to know him if I have the chance. Akiji was also very interested when he heard this. There is no doubt that the next 3 admirals of Marine will be him, Akainu, and Kizuru, but they have been a bit inactive since then. As for Zion and Cake, they are still a bit behind. Kanos Atlas? As Sengoku said this, he took out a piece of information from the top of the pile of documents on his desk, with a photo of Atlas clearly printed on it. Here, Atlas and Smoker, under the leadership of Colonel Hayes, successfully completed the recruitment registration procedures and were coming out of the recruit camp to visit the training camp cafeteria. Captain Atlas, position after reporting to the headquarters. Sengoku Admiral wants to see you. Please come with me. A soldier suddenly blocked the path of Atlas and the 3 of them and said breathlessly. The 3 of Atlas were also stunned, and then Smoker and Hayes looked at Atlas with envy. They were summoned by Sengoku Admiral on the first day after arriving at the headquarters. The future is definitely bright. You must know that the only admiral currently serving in the headquarters is Sengoku, and Kong Kong has already handed over all marine matters to Sengoku. It can be said that Sengoku's succession to Marine Marshal is a certainty. The only difference is time. Yes, Atlas was also stunned, but he quickly answered. Chapter 28 Sengoku summons Dong Dong. Atlas stood at the door of Sengoku's office and knocked politely. After all, he was not familiar with Sengoku now, so he certainly couldn't just push the door in like he did in Logtown. Randall, thank you. Do you think you are polite? Please come in. A deep voice came from the office, and Atlas immediately felt that the owner of the voice was a dignified middle-aged man. When Atlas walked in, he realized that most of Marine's senior executives were gathered in this small office. His expression suddenly became serious, even though Garp was winking at him and giving a standard salute to the Marine bosses present. He gave a military salute and said with a serious expression, Recruit Kano's Atlas, I have met Sengoku Admiral. Yes, Atlas. Marine's future still depends on young people like you. Sengoku looked at Atlas's young face and strong body and couldn't help but sigh. Especially after listening to Garp's evaluation of Atlas, I feel more and more satisfied with Atlas. Aha! Old man Sengoku, I found out where your son Bei is hidden. Just when Sengoku wanted to say a few words to encourage Atlas, he was interrupted by a burst of proud laughter from Garp. Ha ha! Sengoku, I ate all your sunbae. Garp was still provoking Sengoku proudly, completely ignoring the throbbing veins on Sengoku's forehead. Oh, shut up. Sengoku suppressed his anger, looked at Atlas as calmly as possible, gritting his teeth, and asked, So, Captain Atlas, can I ask you what justice is? Suddenly, all 4 pairs of eyes in the room were staring at Atlas. Even Akiji, who had just squinted his eyes, opened his eyelids a little, with a searching look in his eyes. My justice is the strongest. I believe in the strongest justice. Atlas pondered for a while, then looked at the justice who rules the world behind Sengoku and said seriously, If you seek peace through struggle, you will survive peacefully. If you seek peace through compromise, you will perish peacefully. Only fists can end this era of chaos. Atlas said loudly. He doesn't care what these 4 big guys think. He just expresses his truest thoughts. In fact, Atlas is not afraid. Marine is a very tolerant camp and will recognize you as long as you believe in justice. Okay, I probably understand. You can go back and sort out the housekeeping first. Yes. When Atlas heard the eviction order, he simply walked out of the door, and Hai Shun closed the door tightly. Xiaoha Kazan, what do you think of this child? Atlas? There is no doubt that he is a person with extremely firm beliefs, and his belief in power and pursuit of justice are no less than anyone present. In addition, Garp's affirmation of his cultivation talent. Crane Vice Admiral paused for a moment and continued. His future growth will be no less than that of Kazan and the other 3, or even stronger. Maybe the era of great pirates can really end in his hands. Crane Vice Admiral finally said, half-jokingly, Kazan, what about you? Well, this is a Marine with strong beliefs. His justice is not as absolute as Sakazuki's. I would like him to come to my ship after graduation. Akiji also strongly agrees with Atlas, and I don't know if it is to find a labor force. This is not possible. I plan to let him come to my ship to teach me personally. Garp on the side couldn't sit still when he heard this and couldn't help but objected. It's hard to imagine that Atlas is 17 years old now, but his physical strength is already comparable to that of an ordinary rear admiral in this department. And judging from his information, it seems that his proficiency in seeing, hearing, and seeing is not low. With his talent, as long as he starts from after the training camp, you will immediately become an important combat force of Marine. Sengoku picked up the Atlas information from the table and said with some disbelief, even Kazan and the three of them do not have such terrifying strength at this age, especially the physical talent. In Sengoku's recognition, Jijong can only be compared to the monster big MOM. Atlas, on the other side, naturally didn't know what these big guys thought of him, so he walked to his assigned dormitory on his own. The various supplies he had just received were still unorganized in the dormitory. Atlas hummed an incomprehensible song while looking for the dormitory he wanted to stay in. Looking at the house number of the room, Atlas was sure that this was his dormitory. In fact, he had been to the dormitory once before after checking in, but he left after putting things away with Smoker. He did not carefully examine the specific conditions of the dormitory. Pushing the door and entering, the dormitory is a simple 4-person room with 2 single beds, one by the window and one by the door. But when Atlas walked into the dormitory, he was a little doubtful that he had entered the wrong dormitory, because what he saw was debris on the floor, and it seemed a bit familiar. The whole dormitory was a mess, and an Atlas sitting on the bed where things were originally placed was an arrogant and unruly young man who looked to be in his mid-20s. Smoker was not in the dormitory either and had wandered off somewhere. As for the bed near the door, only the upper bed was vacant. Sitting on the lower bed was a blond boy. His appearance could be said to be delicate, but there was always a knot between his eyebrows that could not be resolved, and his body looked a bit thin. Hello. Bow. The blond boy seemed to want to get up and say hello when he saw Atlas coming in, but he didn't know whether it was because he forgot that he was getting out of bed or for some reason he almost hit the bedboard with a headbutt. It was overturned. The young man occupying Atlas's bed over there seemed to regard Atlas and the blond boy as nothing and leaned against the bedside with an indifferent, pretentious look. Hey, this is my bed. Also, you threw down my things. Atlas would not tolerate him and walked directly to the arrogant young man to question him. What's wrong? It belongs to Lousy now. This guy didn't even raise his head, completely ignoring Atlas's existence. Hey, guy over there, I have to take care of this kid now. Can you help hide him? Atlas didn't argue with the idiot and planned to teach him a lesson directly. After all, it was rare to meet someone who could train him. As for why he asked the blond boy to help him cover, it was of course because Atlas knew that his fruit ability could perfectly cover up the traces of Atlas's actions. Chapter 29, Don Quixote Rosinante. Huh? Oh, okay. The blond boy was in a daze. After all, Atlas made fighting so easy, and Atlas sounded like he knew him. Silence soundproof wall. The blond boy is a user with the Paramecia silence fruit ability. He can very well prevent the sounds in this room from attracting the attention of others. It can be said to be the best fruit for spies. No wonder he was sent out as an undercover agent later. Don't worry, it will be over soon. Atlas grinned arrogantly with a big white smile on his face. Hey, why are you so arrogant? I really thought I was sure to win, Lousy. Seeing that Atlas seemed to be serious, the arrogant young man suddenly couldn't maintain his character. If he was punished for fighting before the start of training, he would be beaten to death by his rear admiral father when he returned home. Yes, what he was afraid of was not Atlas beating him, but his father's slap, because in his opinion, Atlas looked only 17 or 18 years old, even though he looked quite strong. But how strong can someone from a small place in East Blue be? Grouse has lived in the Grand Line since he was a child and received rigorous military training. Soon Atlas told Gruss a truth with his fists. Age and strength are not linked. Shave. Atlas dodged directly behind Gruss, hoping to subdue this arrogant guy with one move. Iron Body. As the son of Rear Admiral, He will definitely know one or two of the 6 moves, but now Gruss only knows Iron Body, which is also a relatively simple one among the 6 moves. However, Gruss was horrified to find that even his Iron Body achievement, which was praised by his father, was like paper under Atlas's fist. Boom! Gruss felt a force that he could not match coming towards him, which actually made him feel like facing his father, and then he just lay on the ground like a dog, pretending to be unconscious. Hey, if you're not dead, get up and pack my things. Atlas had already sensed that this guy was not dizzy, so he called him up in a bad tone and put his things back in their place. Hey, boss. Come here. My name is Gruss, boss. What's your name? Gruss is also a thick-skinned guy. When he found out that he was discovered, he didn't pretend to be stunned. He jumped up from the ground in an instant, and he even shamelessly recognized Atlas as the boss. Just call me Atlas. Atlas has nothing to do with such people. After all, he can't reach out to hit the smiling man. What's your name, kid over there? Atlas asked the blonde young man. Atlas was obviously the youngest here, but he insisted on calling others brats in an old-fashioned way. There was no one else. My name is Razanani. Also, you seem to know me. How do you know that my fruit ability can help you cover up your movements? Razanani was a little shy, but still mustered up the courage to ask. He also thought that Atlas was sent by the world government's CP agency to monitor him, so he was a little wary. I don't know. I just want you to help me look at the wind. Who knew that your fruit ability could just help me? Atlas explained casually. What I was thinking was, not only do I know you, but I also know that your surname is Don Quixote, that you used to be a member of the Celestial Dragons, and that you were the adopted son of Sengoku Admiral. 2 years later, you'll go undercover to the Don Quixote family and stab Doflamingo in the back. Oh, that's how it is. I don't know if Razanani believed it or not, but Atlas didn't care about such a trivial matter. Brother Atlas, I'm back. Suddenly, the door to the dormitory was pushed open from the outside. It was Smoker. Gruss, who had sharp ears, immediately slowed down the speed of packing things when he heard the noise. He raised his head and looked at Smoker carefully. He found that the new kid was about the same size as Atlas, but judging from the size alone, he must be the same in physical skills. Far inferior to Atlas, Gruss suddenly felt that he was doing well again. Smoker saw his roommate as soon as he opened the door and walked in. A smile appeared on his face, and he introduced himself enthusiastically. Hello, my name is Smoker. I am from the East Blue Branch. I am a Logia smoke fruit-capable person. Upon hearing Logia, Gruss and Razanani were shocked. It turned out to be the extremely rare Logia demon fruit power. He must be the strongest one in their session. They have never heard of any other Logia. But, seeing how respectful the guy named Smoker was to Atlas just now, could it be that he has already learned the weapon color? Gruss was a little confused. Being for the Grand Line, his vision was naturally not as narrow as Smoker's. Armament Hockey naturally knows, but Gruss immediately became a little depressed. He was the weakest in the entire dormitory, with 2 demon fruit powers, one still difficult to deal with Logia, and a physical monster. Fortunately, he still wanted to establish his prestige at the beginning and become the boss of the dormitory for fun. Who would have thought that now he has become the common boy in the dormitory? Hey, Smoker, you kid, where did you go fooling around just now? When Atlas saw Smoker coming back so late, he couldn't help but said 8 trigrams. Hey, I met a difficult recruit and had a fight with her. Oh, hearing this, the other people in the dormitory immediately stretched out their ears. This recruit can make even Logia users find it difficult to deal with. Is this recruit training camp so scary? Is it too late to quit now? Gruss thought sadly. Oh, is it also demon fruit power? Atlas asked everyone's biggest question. Paramecia Cage fruit ability user. This is what she said. But she still can't do anything to me. Smoker raised his head slightly and said proudly. Okay, the camp will start gathering for the first time tomorrow morning. You guys go to bed early. I'll go do some extra training first. Atlas doesn't care. With his current fighting power, he is like a human bulldozer, which can push through the entire training camp. Not to mention that his current body bones and muscle density are still increasing. As long as it is not the top level, he has no fear of Logia Devil Fruit. Are you still going to train so late? Razanani and Gruss were obviously a little surprised, but Smoker looked calm. He had personally tried Atlas's training volume, and the amount of warm-up alone almost didn't make him fall down. It can only be said that no one's strength comes out of thin air. Chapter 30, Zephyr Grand Line, Naval Headquarters Marine Fort. Do. A rapid whistle sounded over the recruit training camp, breaking the silence of the night. It is now 5 o'clock in the morning. Most of the recruits who have just arrived at the headquarters are still sleeping in the warm quilts, while Atlas has completed today's swordsmanship hacking practice. Soon, about 160 people gathered on the recruiting training ground. Atlas came to the school without any delay, found Smoker and the others positioned, and slowly walked up to them. Standing in front of the school grounds was a middle-aged man with short purple hair. His half-open clothes revealed his strong chest muscles, and his thick neck almost connected to his scalp. Marine recruit training camp chief instructor Black Arm Zephyr. Standing behind Zephyr was a tall man with a ponytail and dark skin, his arms hanging naturally above his knees. What surprised Atlas was that this big man was actually a member of the Longhand clan, which was rare. In Atlas's impression, it seems that there will be a supernova in the evil generation of pirates more than 10 years later, who is also from the Longhands clan. Zephyr stood calmly in front of a group of somewhat turbulent recruits, glanced around lightly, and then said, "Quiet. I am very disappointed in you. Now there is no need for those who come later. You have been eliminated." The sound was not very loud, but it reached everyone's ears clearly. All of a sudden, some recruits who came in a hurry from behind turned pale and slumped to the ground in despair. The Marine Recruit Training Camp is the cradle of Marine generals. Basically, the minimum who graduates from here is a school-level officer. If they are expelled from here, the stain will follow them for life. No, Zephyr instructor, give us another chance. Some people are still unwilling to give in and hope that Zephyr will be soft-hearted and let them go for once. You are soldiers, and your mission is to protect the safety of people around the world. If you can't do the most basic thing of obeying orders, how can you carry out your justice? Although Zephyr is known as the no-kill admiral, he is not a soft-hearted person. Soldiers must have ironclad discipline and obedience. After dealing with the first batch of eliminated people, Zephyr looked around and finally settled on Atlas with an inexplicable smile on his lips. "Kanos, Atlas? I'm really looking forward to it. Everyone has it. I know that many of you come from all over the world, are even well known in the branch, are from the Grand Line, and some even have parents who work at the top of Marine. But here, all of you are forget everything. I even taught your parents, so don't try to get any privileges from me." Zephyr looked at the expressionless people, paused, and continued. "Lousy's name is Zephyr, and he is your chief instructor. I believe some of you have heard of me, and it doesn't matter if you haven't. You just need to obey orders here. Did you hear that?" Heard it. All the recruits roared as loud as they could, and Atlas was no exception. "Very good. Now your Taijutsu instructor Shizo will introduce you to some situations during the recruit training period." Zephyr looked at this group of energetic young people with satisfaction, then took a step back, leaving the stage to Shizo, the strong man from the Longhand tribe. "Hello, my name is Shizo. You can call me Commander Shizo. I am responsible for teaching you how to practice physical skills. I am also Teacher Zephyr's deputy. Our recruit training lasts for 3 years. Of course, if you want to graduate early, you just need to pass the Zephyr instructor's assessment." At this point, Shizo smiled a little humorously. "Tomorrow, we will conduct a strength test. This will also allow us to have a more detailed understanding of you, develop special training methods for you, and achieve maximum growth in the shortest time." Shizo looked around, looked at the slightly moved expressions of everyone, and continued. "Of course, you don't want to come to this gilding with luck. There will be an assessment at the end of every year, and those who fail will be postponed for 1 year to graduate. There is only one chance to defer, and there are corresponding assessments for graduation. I hope I will still see people like you then." "Very good. Since no one has spoken out against it, let's start the first part of today's training, physical training. Now, everyone moves in place and gives you 10 minutes to warm up." After Shizo finished his lecture, he ran to the side and discussed something with Zephyr in whispers. Atlas was a little curious, but he didn't dare to eavesdrop with his knowledge, so he could only start warming up on the spot. To be honest, Atlas is not looking forward to the physical training later, because he usually carries weights for physical training, but today, because he has to be recruited for training, he doesn't take it out. Then he will just run around and deal with it. That's it. Okay, everyone is here. Let's run 50 laps around the school field today, and then go have dinner after finishing the run. Everyone did not complain and silently began to run circles around the playground. Atlas and others also walked towards the track. These recruits are working hard to stand out in this training. Maybe they will be valued by the Zephyr instructor and specially given a small job. Then they will take off immediately. Atlas is naturally not to be outdone. He has nothing to hide. The sooner he shows his talent and strength, the more likely he will be reused. It has to be said that Atlas's physique was already the best in the entire training camp. Everyone felt like a gust of wind passing by them. Within a few minutes, Atlas's laps had already left everyone far behind. Behind him, damn it, where did this fierce guy come from? Brother Atlas is really awesome. It seems I have to keep working hard. This is Smoker. Our boss is so fierce. He really deserves to be the boss of Gruss. This is the cheeky guy from Gruss. Ever since he was taught a lesson by Atlas, this guy has become attached to Atlas and cannot get rid of him. Atlas, don't worry, Zayamiguo, he is definitely not from the CP department. This kid's potential is promising admiral. In the darkness, a phone bug with frog glasses and a twist-shaped beard on his chin spoke slowly in a relaxed tone. That's awesome, Atlas. Recalling Sengoku's evaluation of Atlas last night, Razanani couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 31, Testing Marineford Recruit Camp. The deep night sky was dotted with a few stars, and the cool breeze gently caressed Atlas's strong body. At this time, he was doing extra exercises after meals on the school field, but thinking about this morning's training camp, he felt a headache. In order to finish the physical training early in the morning, it can be said that he used his speed to the ultimate without reservation and completed the task in only 1/3 of the time of others. But the Zephyr instructor on the side didn't seem to want him to be so relaxed, so he performed additional weight-bearing exercises, which made him very tired. Zephyr almost accurately adjusted Atlas's weight to his current physical limit, which gave Atlas a headache and a little excitement at the same time. He believed that as long as he came out of the training camp, his strength would definitely make a leap. After completing the last training event, Atlas turned around and planned to go back to the dormitory to take a shower to wash away the fatigue of the day. Little did they know, in a brightly lit building in the distance, Zephyr stood quietly in front of the window, silently watching Atlas's leaving figure. Zephyr had been standing there for several hours, watching Atlas, so he didn't notice at all. What a hardworking kid. Atlas dragged his tired body into the dormitory and found the other 3 people nestled neatly in the dormitory. Boss, you're finally here. I have already prepared the hot water for you. Come on, take a refreshing hot bath. Gruss looked proud of himself. Have you filled the hot water for me? It's just what I wanted. Thank you, Gruss. Atlas was already used to Gruss behavior and naturally accepted the kindness. It's nothing. If you are willing, boss, I can help you fetch water every day. Gruss said with some joy, as if he was too excited to be recognized by Atlas, which made Smoker and Razanani shiver. This guy, do you have any special hobbies? Well, I'll trouble you from now on, Gruss. Atlas didn't care and said with a smile, from now on, I will rely on you, boss, to protect me. I asked around and found that there are about 160 recruits in our current class. There were about 30 people who repeated the grade in the last class, and according to the information I got, there are 3 monster newcomers in our class. At this point, Gruss looked at the others meaningfully and then excitedly said, Then let's wait until you finish taking a shower, boss. Gruss is also a BCH, and he insists on giving up at critical moments, which makes Smoker and Razanani feel scratched and frustrated. What nonsense are you talking about? Come on, Atlas urged, punching his big head casually. There are 2 of the 3 monster newcomers in our dormitory, and you, the boss, top the list. After speaking, Gruss glanced at Smoker. Me? Did they make a mistake? Smoker was so used to being beaten by Atlas that he almost lost his confidence. He didn't expect that he would be lucky enough to be tied with Atlas. But who is the other person? Smoker was a little curious. You don't know this, right? The third person is a woman, and she seems to be a demon fruit power, but I didn't find out the specific ability, but I know her name. Gruss said with a lewd expression on his face. Smile. Is your name Hina? For some reason, Smoker suddenly thought of this name. Huh? How did you know? Gruss was obviously a little surprised. He had been asking for this information for a long time, but he didn't expect Smoker to know it before him. Well, didn't I tell you last time that I had a fight with a Paramecia cage fruit user? That person's name is Hina. Smoker was also a little surprised, but he didn't expect such a coincidence. But I still think the boss is the strongest recruiter, and he is the real monster. Gruss already knew from Smoker that Atlas could hold Smoker's Logia down purely by relying on his physical strength. The man rubbing against the ground. Smoker and Razanani also agreed and nodded in agreement. Okay, you brats, get some rest early. Tomorrow is the camp entrance test. Atlas interrupted their 8 trigrams at the right time. If they continued chatting like this, I don't know how long it would take before they could fall asleep. Others in the dormitory have also become accustomed to Atlas's old-fashioned manner of speaking. After all, in the world of One Piece, strong men behave somewhat differently from ordinary people. A night without words. Recruit training camp campus. Before dawn, there was a long queue of recruits on the school grounds. It wasn't because they were diligent, but because they were frightened by yesterday's elimination method. Atlas, on the other hand, had just come over from morning training and silently found his position where he stood yesterday. But there was some commotion among the crowd because of Atlas's arrival. After all, the figure of Iki Juechen in the physical training yesterday left a deep impression on them. Moreover, the leader of the 3 monster recruits secretly circulated in the recruiting camp also made Atlas famous. Soon it was time for the test, and Zephyr and Shizo appeared in front of everyone on time, followed by a machine about 4 meters high and 3 meters wide, which landed steadily next to them. Very good. It seems that no one is late today. Today's test uses a machine carried out by the World Government Science Department. The measure value is called the power value. Of course, the power value is just a static display of your physical data and cannot determine your combat effectiveness. There are many factors that affect combat effectiveness, including your mentality, will, and other things on the battlefield. Shizo slowly explained while looking at the curious eyes of all the recruits. After saying that, Shizo picked up the list in his hand and called them one by one in the order on the list to the machine to prepare for the test. Gross! Gruss was a little surprised when he heard his first test, but he quickly walked out of the queue and stepped forward. Come on, use your most powerful attack to hit the machine. You can use physical skills or sword skills. Shizo explained to Gruss and stepped aside. Bang! Gruss used all his strength to send his fist to the testing machine. Power value, 550. A cold electronic synthesized sound floated out from the machine. Next, Kirkland. Shizo continued to read the name, with neither sadness nor joy on his face, making it difficult to tell whether this result was good or bad. Bugra. Power value, 230. Berengel. Power value, 180-inch smoker. Power value, 800. Everyone took a breath. After the previous rounds of tests, they had a rough idea of what the power value is like. It can be said that a Logia value of 520 or above truly transcends the limits of the human body and reaches the level of Superman. And Smoker's Logia value of 800 really shocked them. Not to mention that Smoker is also a Logia demon fruit power. Chapter 32, Dao Power Value Hina. Power value, 750. Another boss. Everyone is almost numb. Their general power level is around 300. Only a few extremely outstanding people have a level of more than 500. However, Hina, a girl, has a power level so much higher than them. This makes them a little bit more powerful. Frustrated, Hina is very unhappy. Hina saw that her strength seemed to be lagging behind that guy Smoker. She couldn't help but muttered, then glanced at Smoker and the team and returned to her position. What is this guy looking at me for? Is he provoking me? Smoker thought in a depressed tone when he saw Hina looking at him a little unhappy. Next, Kano's Atlas. Hearing this name, Everyone who was a little bored after waiting cheered up a little, and even Zephyr on the side also cast a concerned look. Atlas walked forward calmly, took a deep breath, gripped the ground with his toes, his body sank, and he suddenly exerted force. Iron Body Shatter Bird Thorn. Atlas shouted loudly, and used a move derived from Iron Body to hit the machine hard with a jab. Power value, 5,000. Boom! When the cold electronic synthesized sound announced Atlas's results, the crowd immediately became excited, and even Zephyr was distracted for a moment. The recruits may have expected that Atlas' power value might be slightly higher than the other two so-called monster recruits, but they didn't expect the gap to be so big. With a power value of 5,000, Atlas' actual combat power may be even higher than this value. But Atlas himself was very calm. This result was within his expectation. After all, he was still an iron-slaying swordsman. Okay, be quiet. Continue with the next one. Although Shizuo was also surprised, he came out in time to stop the recruits' discussion and continued to host the following tests. Naval Headquarters, Admiral Office. Under the plaque of justice that reigns over the world, Sengoku, who wears frog eyes, is immersed in processing documents, and from time to time throws discarded documents to the goat for processing. Suddenly he paused, picked up the document in his hand, and scanned it carefully, and then handed the document in his hand to the Crane Vice Admiral next to him. Xiaohe, please take a look at this document. The Crane Vice Admiral on the side took the document from Sengoku's hand doubtfully, and then laughed out loud. I really saw this kid right. His power is worth 5,000. He's really a scary kid. After the recruit test, Shizuo informed the recruits with a strength value below 500 to undergo basic physical training first, while those with a strength value above 500 will receive Shizuo's special physical training tomorrow. Fortunately for Atlas, all of their dormitories passed, and even Razanani, who seemed to be relatively thin, had a strength value of 520, which was just up to standard. Are you Atlas? Hina wants to get to know you. Just after the disbandment, Atlas was about to go to the cafeteria with Smoker and the others to have a fight, when a girl with sassy light pink hair parted in the middle and purple lens sunglasses blocked their way. Hello, my name is Atlas. Atlas was stunned for a moment, but he still reacted and answered. Hina wants to compete with you. I have heard from Smoker that you are very powerful. Atlas turned his head and looked at the confused Smoker with an expressionless expression. It turns out it was you, the little brat, who caused trouble for me. Sorry, you are too weak. I have no interest. Atlas rejected Hina's challenge without hesitation. He joked that fighting with you would not be as good as going to the cafeteria to eat meat. He then passed Hina and walked straight toward the cafeteria. Brother, wait for me. The three smokers next to them were also confused by Atlas's straightforward refusal. When they saw Atlas walking away, they hurried to catch up. Hina, who stayed where she was, looked at Atlas's leaving back and clenched her fists. A will to refuse to admit defeat ignited in her heart. She had never been so crushed by her peers since she was a child. She had previously treated Smoker Hina, only looked at him a little higher because of his Logia Devil Fruit. As night fell, Atlas continued his evening practice as usual. Kid, how about I be your opponent? Suddenly a deep voice came from behind Atlas. Zephyr instructor, Atlas exclaimed, a little surprised to see the chief instructor Zephyr here. Atlas, I have been paying attention to you for a long time, and I just feel a little itchy today. It's what I asked for. Atlas grinned and said excitedly. Shave. Atlas' leg muscles exerted force, and he moved in front of Zephyr instantly. His body was like a tight bow, and his arms suddenly became thicker. He attacked Zephyr's face directly. Zephyr's expression remained unchanged, and his palm blocked the direction of Atlas's fist as if he had predicted it. He firmly grasped Atlas's fist, then took a step forward, exerting force on his waist, trying to give Atlas a blow. Lars throws him over the shoulder. Iron Body knee, strike divine power. How could Atlas let Zephyr get his wish so easily? He used the iron body that he had already cultivated to an extremely advanced level in conjunction with the Ox Talisman, and directly hit Zephyr with a knee strike. Zephyr quickly reached out to block this powerful and heavy knee strike, and Atlas avoided the fate of being thrown over his shoulder. Kid, you have good strength and quick reflexes, and your iron body training is also very good. Seeing Atlas defusing his counterattack so skillfully, he couldn't help but admire him. But I'm going to get serious next time. Be careful, kid. Iron Body Fist, Smash, Supernatural Power. Zephyr's response was Atlas's fist. The continuous punches were so fast that it gave people the illusion of hundreds or even thousands of punches. Haha, Iron Body Steel-Armed. Naturally, Zephyr could not be deceived by this kind of blindness. With his powerful sight, he could clearly catch Atlas's fist and then accurately put the weapon on it, distributed across the impact points of Atlas' fists. Boom, boom, boom. Bursts of dull blows sounded, and Atlas couldn't help but shake his numb fist. It was so hard, completely unable to break through Zephyr's armor defense. Not bad strength. Zephyr was also shocked by Atlas's power. The 17-year-old Atlas had such great strength. If Zephyr had not known in advance that Atlas was a pure physical powerhouse, otherwise I would really suspect that he had secretly eaten devil fruit. Itoryu Raikiri Divine Power. Seeing that the fist attack was ineffective against Zephyr, Atlas decisively pulled out the third-generation Kitetsu from his waist and struck Zephyr. A bright sword light appeared instantly, almost lighting up the darkness of this space. The originally cold and windy night suddenly became filled with a biting chill. This was a sword-drawing technique. The sharp sword intent struck at Zephyr, and Zephyr suddenly felt a chill all over his body. The sword light seemed to cut his body in half. Zephyr's eyes lit up. This sword can almost cause extremely serious damage to Vice Admiral and below, especially those who are not skilled in arm color. However, although the speed of this sword is very fast and the timing of the sword is extremely clever, with Zephyr's powerful after seeing the color, he still dodged it. Shave. Zephyr appeared in front of Atlas in an instant, clinging to him with his armed body, and punched Atlas in the lower abdomen with his dark fist. Atlas clearly reacted to what he saw, but Zephyr's speed was too fast, and his body had no time to counterattack. Boom! Iron Body Como. Chapter 33, 6 Styles, Early Morning, Recruit Camp Campus. Rows of Marine recruits are rushing forward around the edge of the school field, but there seems to be no expression on their numb faces. This training method is not like jogging for a period of time like HIIT exercise, but running forward with all the strength of the whole body. I believe many people who have run 400 meters or 800 meters have experienced this. This method, it can squeeze out a person's potential and physical ability very well. The leader is undoubtedly Atlas. He has already surpassed others by too many laps, and he is still carrying a load. So the look in Atlas's eyes has dimmed a little. The more reason is thinking back to the punch he had with Zephyr last night. He now had the illusion of a dull pain in his abdomen. Iron Body Como. Just when Zephyr's fist was about to touch Atlas's lower abdomen, Atlas reacted and tried to defend the punch with his iron body. Even if it didn't work, he would try to reduce the damage. Boom! A violent force entered Atlas's abdomen with strange penetrating power. Atlas suddenly felt like an overflowing river was surging in his body, almost knocking out his overnight meal. Fortunately, the defense was broken. I don't know what this kid grew up on. His muscle density is like a monster. Fortunately, I used emission hockey a little bit. Otherwise, where would I put my face? Fortunately, Atlas didn't know that Zephyr actually used emission hockey on him. Otherwise, he really didn't know whether to cry or laugh. Okay, there's still the last 10 minutes of the 20-minute extreme run. Hold on. Look at Atlas. Compared to you, he has a heavy load on him. What reason do you have for not persisting? Shizo stood on the school field. In the center, he scolded expressionlessly. You must remember the feeling at this moment. A real strong person is not only strong in strength, but also strong in will. It doesn't matter if you don't understand it now. You'll understand it later. So what you have to do now is just to persist, to break through your own limits, to defeat yourself. This kind of physical training is actually mainly to exercise a person's will. Of course, it is also very helpful for the growth of physical fitness. So it has nothing to do with strength. It just depends on whether a person's belief and willpower are strong. Soon, 5 minutes passed. Boom! At the end of the line, a man fell to the ground without warning, breathing in the fresh air greedily. His heavy breathing sounded like the bellows of a blacksmith shop, and his whole body fell to the ground weakly like a puddle of mud. Soon, a few more people who couldn't hold on chose to give up. Just like the domino effect, a large number of people fell in an instant. Shizo, who was watching all this, did not stop him, but chose to watch indifferently. Atlas, the leader, still continued to run towards a set goal like a machine. Apart from a slightly heavy breathing, there was no change at all, and even his steps were so precise. Monster! A word emerged in everyone's mind unconsciously. Atlas trotted up to Shizo and asked, "Report to instructor. Is there a heavier load?" "It's too light." The adjutant on the side said helplessly, "No, you are already carrying the biggest burden in the recruit camp." Shizo was speechless for a while, and then said to Atlas, "This kind of ordinary training is meaningless to you. You and those with a power value of more than 500 will come to me later." Yes. At this time, the special physical training time has passed, and everyone is lying on the ground without any image. Even the girl Hina is no exception. Shizo glanced briefly. Although Atlas was the only one standing there were still about 100 people who persisted. Shizo couldn't help but secretly nodded, and became more concerned about these hundreds of people. Some of them might only have 1 or 200 Taoist power, but their performance in terms of will was undoubtedly outstanding. Now for the next training, Lieutenant, please supervise them. Those who have a power value of more than 500 before will come out. Come with me. Shizo told the adjutant next to him and walked out of the school grounds. There seemed to be about 8 people out, including Atlas. Among them, Atlas knew only 4 people, and the rest didn't have much impression. I've called you out to prepare you for the next stage of special training. Your physiques have basically exceeded the limits of the human body, and now I'm going to teach you a physical technique that goes beyond the limits of the human body. Marine 6 styles. Of course, even if your physical fitness has reached the standard, I still want to warn you. Be careful not to bite off more than you can chew. If you feel that your talent is not good enough, you can selectively practice a few of these styles. Shizo warned with a serious expression. But everyone present is not a genius. They all stand out from their respective bases and are naturally arrogant. Shizo has already foreseen that there must be someone who wants to collect all 6 styles. By the way, except Atlas, you have to learn all 6 moves. Also, you're considered the elite class of the recruitment camp, but there will be an assessment at the end of the year, and you will be challenged by the ordinary class. The winner will go up, and the loser will go down. As long as you have a big fist here, you can enjoy more resources. Shizo's words were very provocative. The recruits present were not fools, and they naturally knew what to do. Okay, now let me explain Marine 6 styles to you. I believe that everyone has been exposed to the 6 styles at one time or another. I will explain the principles to you first, and then I will give you a deeper understanding of the 6 styles through actual combat. It will be up to you to make your own decisions later. Shaving means stepping on the ground dozens of times in a row to generate high explosive force to propel the body's movement. Tempest kick is a kicking technique that rolls up a vacuum attack and then causes a slash like a swordsman. In other words, people then turned their attention to Atlas, and he was the only iron swordsman present. As for moonwalk, it allows you to achieve the effect of staying in the air for a short time. It consumes a lot of physical strength. The difficulty of learning can be said to be the most difficult of the 6 poses. Finger pistol gathers all the power of the whole body on the index finger, which can cause gunshots. The effect can penetrate steel easily. Paper arts is, after Shizo finished speaking, he looked in the direction of Atlas, which immediately gave Atlas an ominous premonition. Atlas, come up and spar with me, so that everyone can have a more intuitive feel for the 6 postures. Sure enough, as soon as Shizo spoke to Atlas, he felt that he was going to suffer again. Smoker and Razanani on the side also looked at Atlas with gloating eyes. Chapter 34, Return of Life? There's nothing we can do about it. I won't be merciful. Shizo instructor. Seeing that Atlas couldn't hide, He had no choice but to bite the bullet. Stop talking nonsense, kid. Finger pistol Madara. Shizo made gun shapes with both hands, as if he had turned into a multi-armed Shura. Countless bullets hit Atlas. Although he asked Atlas to come up as a sparring partner, he would not underestimate what was in front of him. This young brat. Atlas was not in a hurry. A red light flashed in his eyes. The color of sight was turned on, and he dodged Shizo's finger pistol by moving his body slightly. However, Atlas was not someone who could just dodge without fighting back. Before Shizo could withdraw his strength, he lunged forward and stepped hard on the ground with his left leg. A hole immediately spread in all directions. Iron body adherence, superior power. Shizo was shocked when he saw this, and quickly retracted his arms in a cross-like manner to protect himself. However, he still felt like he was hit head-on by a sea steam train, and he couldn't help but take a few steps back before he could stop. "How's it going, Shizo instructor?" Atlas grinned at Shizo. Everyone around him was also frightened. If it were them, they probably wouldn't be able to take this blow. "Good boy, come again." Shizo was also aroused with the desire to win in his heart, and said with a sinister smile, Tempest Kick, Chaos." After all, Atlas had just learned Tempest Kick, so he had not yet developed the extended skill of Tempest Kick. He suffered a big loss immediately, and the dense vacuum slashes almost overwhelmed Atlas. Razor! Suddenly, Atlas disappeared on the spot, and several afterimages suddenly appeared in midair, just in time to avoid all the slashes. In fact, with Atlas's current physique, the most he would suffer from these slashes was a few flesh wounds, but Atlas still wanted to be more decent. It would be very detrimental to his image if he was covered in tatters. Atlas also took the opportunity to rush towards Shizo. He was in front of Shizo almost instantly, and hit Shizo's vitals with a direct finger pistol. "Look, this is Iron Body." Shizo actually still had time to explain to everyone, which made Atlas's hand unconsciously increase in strength. Kiang! A sound of gold and iron sounded. Iron Body steel-armed. In order not to fall over, Shizo secretly covered his clothes with a layer of armed color. Reality told him that his caution was not unreasonable. Although it was the first time to use Atlas's finger pistol, with the powerful physique and the divine power given by the Ox Talisman, it was not just as simple as 1 + 1 = 2. If Shizo had not been armed just now, he would have been stabbed to death at least. Although it would not be a serious problem, it would be embarrassing in front of the students. Okay, today's demonstration is over. Shizo saw an excited smile gradually appearing on Atlas's face and quickly terminated the demonstration. Seeing this, Atlas didn't feel like taking action anymore, so he had to lick his lips with unsatisfied feelings. He had never encountered any decent opponents in East Blue before. Sure enough, this trip to the headquarters was well worth it. In Atlas's view, the real strong man must challenge the stronger one. The strong man will swing his sword at the stronger one, while the weak will only swing his sword at the weaker one. Strength never comes out of thin air, and destiny will never let down every drop of sweat you shed. Okay, you can practice by yourself and the rest of the time. If you don't understand, you can come to me. Atlas, come with me. Teacher Zephyr has something to do with you. Shizo dismissed Smoker and others casually, and then greeted Atlas went to Zephyr. Hearing that Zephyr was going to meet Atlas, everyone immediately looked at him with envy. After all, it was a summons from Marine Admiral. He might even get Zephyr's careful teachings, but they were just envious. When there is a gap between you and a person, jealousy may still arise when they are not big. But once the gap reaches a huge difference, only envy will remain. Although Atlas was a little confused as to why Zephyr wanted to see him, wasn't he satisfied with yesterday's battle? Thinking of this, Atlas couldn't help rubbing his teeth. "Kid, how are you doing with the 6 styles?" Zephyr asked directly about Atlas's practice when they met, with a gentle smile on his face. Zephyr can be said to be a harsh person, but he is definitely not harsh. Otherwise, many generals in Marine would not have graduated, so they would still be grateful to him. It is said that Shizo stayed in the recruit camp to help Zephyr because he wanted to follow Zephyr. Even later, Zephyr decided to betray Marine and established Inyo Marine. There are a large number of followers, which shows how charming Zephyr himself is. It's not bad. There's no problem with the basic principles and usage. The only problem is the time for practice. Atlas replied seriously. Zephyr is not surprised by this. He has long been immune to Atlas's monster learning ability. Don't underestimate the practice of 6 styles. It's not just a fighting technique. Practice all 6 styles to Grandmaster, and finally achieve ultimate control over the body. This is the 7th style of Marine's 6 styles, Return of Life. Zephyr continued to explain to Atlas. Return Life? Atlas showed a hint of surprise. In fact, he had already known about the skill of returning life. After all, isn't it common sense that there are 7 of the 6 moves? Yes, life return. Among Marines, there are only a few people who can successfully practice life return. The most famous one is Naval Headquarters Rear Admiral Ghost Spider's 8-sword style. The principle is to inject consciousness into the hair, and the magic effect of life return is it's much more than that. Moreover, in fact, you have already achieved part of the return of life, and can maximize the use of energy to achieve the effect of repairing the body, just like your body's powerful self-healing ability. But yours is passive, while Return of Life is its subjective and conscious control. Zephyr is still very satisfied with Atlas. As an older generation Marine, he attaches great importance to physical fitness. He does not deny the Devil Fruit, but he does not advocate relying too much on the fruit's ability. When Porisolino was in the recruiting camp, he was criticized many times by Zephyr for relying too much on fruit abilities. So when I see a pure physical strongman like Atlas, I feel an inexplicable affection. Kid, I'm very optimistic about you. You have the potential to become the Marine Admiral in the future. Zephyr patted Atlas's shoulder heavily, with a look of pride on his face. Of course, I want to become the strongest man in the world. Chapter 35, Digging a Hole. The morning sun was not dazzling, and the rolling waves hit the coast tirelessly over and over again. On a large rock on the shore, Atlas was sitting quietly with his upper body naked, looking at it with blank eyes. Far away, what I was thinking about was the recent practice. Atlas has been practicing the 6 forms for some time. Although his proficiency in the 6 forms has been very high, he has recently encountered a bottleneck. Although he has proficiency, his understanding of the 6 forms is too shallow, and he has never been able to develop it. Extension of the 6 moves. What? The practice of 6 styles has encountered a bottleneck. Zephyr's office is not very luxurious, and it is even a bit too simple. There is a plaque with the words, "Justice without killing," hanging on the front wall, and an old sofa next to it. I don't know how long it has been, but Shuzo is sitting on the sofa calmly, with a thoughtful look on his rough face, as if he is worrying about the training camp. Atlas was sitting across from Zephyr's desk, quietly waiting for Zephyr's answer. Well, that's it. You have to fight with me first, and let me see your current level. Zephyr pondered for a while, and then came up with the idea of fighting Atlas. After all, it can be seen most intuitively in actual combat. The practice situation of Atlas 6 styles. Okay, I'll trouble you, Mr. Zephyr. Naturally, Atlas would not refuse such an opportunity. Having such a top expert as a sparring coach is definitely something that many people dream of. Shuzo on the side also showed interest when he saw this situation. He himself was very curious about the progress of Atlas's strength. You must know that a few months ago, he really couldn't win Atlas without using the weapon color. Atlas's monster-like physique and strength left a deep impression on him. Teacher Zephyr, be careful. Atlas couldn't help but remind them after the two of them stood still on the playground. Ha ha, you brat. Attack me with all your strength. Zephyr laughed loudly, throwing the cloak of justice behind his back to Shuzo aside, showing off his strong muscles. Shave. Iron body boxing, divine power. As soon as he finished speaking, Atlas struck preemptively, lunged forward, and hit Zephyr's chest with his right fist. The huge force even made the air roar. Well done. Zephyr was not afraid at all, and also punched each other with fists. Suddenly, a huge roar stirred up a burst of dust around the two of them. Come again. Atlas shook his numb arm and faced him again with high spirits. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of fierce collisions kept ringing in the school grounds, making the recruits who were watching the excitement feel numb. Although they thought Atlas was very strong before, they never felt it intuitively. But after witnessing today's battle with Zephyr, finally, they had a concrete concept of the power of Atlas. You know, Zephyr is a black arm admiral. Even if he retires early, it will not affect his strength that is still at the peak. This can't help but make the surrounding recruits a bit shocked. Why is the gap between people so big? Winky face. Shizo on the side couldn't help but light up when he saw the expressions on the recruits' faces, as if he had figured out some difficult problem. Ha ha ha, so happy. Finger pistol. Iron body. Sure enough, iron body and iron body are different. When Atlas finger pistol is placed on Zephyr's body, it feels like a sword colliding with steel. It just breaks the skin and can't make an inch. It's my turn, kid. Ha ha ha. Seeing that Atlas's finger pistol was not perfect, Zephyr couldn't help but teased, but the movements of his hands did not stop for a moment. Return of life paper arts martial body. Shave. I saw that Zephyr's original height of 3.48 meters is shrunk rapidly, and his muscles seemed to have been run over by a hydraulic machine, like fine steel that had been tempered for thousands of times. The whole person gave people a short and lean feeling, and then quickly disappeared in front of Atlas. Moving the speed was so fast that Atlas didn't even react to what Ultimate was seeing and seeing. Danger! Danger! Suddenly, a black shadow shrouded behind Atlas, and the early warning from Giant Wentz frantically urged Atlas to leave the place. But before he could turn his body, a huge iron fist quickly hit his back. Iron body boxing technique, giant hammer. Boom! Atlas, who had received a solid punch from Zephyr, hit the ground hard on the school ground. The terrifying force even made a huge human-shaped crater in the hard ground. How merciless. Teacher Zephyr. Atlas climbed up from ground with some pain. What surprised everyone around him was that his clothes were only slightly damaged. Even the scratches on his face healed at a speed visible to the naked eye, leaving only a few lines. By Hen, what a terrifying physique this is. Isn't this guy really Zoan Demon Fruit power? I know you are not afraid at all with your brat's physique, but I didn't expect it to be so exaggerated. Ha ha ha. Zephyr patted Atlas on the shoulder as he spoke, and Atlas could only stand aside. Smiling bitterly, he let the old man do whatever he wanted. Teacher Zephyr, you were in this state just now. Yes, it's what you think, but this is just an application of life return. By the way, I just saw it. Your mastery of the 6 postures is really good. It's just that the time for practice is too short now. If you want to grow faster, you can only start with actual combat, so that you can master the 6 postures faster. Apply the pose into your body. What should I do? Atlas suddenly became a little distressed. Although Zephyr is now an admiral who has retired early, as the chief instructor of the recruitment camp, he is still very busy with official duties and cannot always accompany him. He sparred. As for the rest of the recruiting camp, Atlas shook his head secretly in his heart. They were too weak to pose any threat to him. Teacher Zephyr, I can be responsible for being a sparring partner for Junior Kanos. Shizo, who had been planning for a long time, immediately volunteered upon seeing this. Atlas was a little surprised. It was not that he had never thought of looking for Shizo, but his affairs should not be very small. Unexpectedly, but I have a favor here, and I need the help of Junior Kanos. Shizo's dark face turned red, and he said a little shyly, Good guy, you are waiting for me here. I usually see you as a dark-faced man who is honest, but I didn't expect you to play tricks on me. Urguzi, you have changed. Atlas complained secretly in his heart. Chapter 36, I'm going to beat you all. Atlas, I would like to trouble you to help me teach those people in the elite class a lesson. Shizo said with some embarrassment. Atlas almost thought he heard wrongly, and quickly cast a doubtful look at Shizo. Zephyr on the side also listened with interest. I just feel that Smoker and the others are a little too ambitious. They want to learn all 6 moves at this stage, so I hope you can give them a tip, please. This time Atlas and Zephyr understood a little bit. It's possible that Smoker and the others were too greedy and ignored Shizo's warning at the beginning. However, Shizo couldn't find an effective way to persuade them, so he could only do this. It's too late. Everyone come here. I'll find you a sparring partner today to test your recent training results. Shizo smiled and said to Smoker and others who were practicing. He forced a harmless smile on his dark face. But why? It feels weird to see it. Boss. Needless to say, this must be the guy from Gruss. Brother Atlas? Atlas. Atlas's 3 roommates were obviously a little surprised. They rarely saw Atlas anymore. There was no way around it. Atlas was the first to get up for exercise every day and the last to go back to the dormitory to rest. He was busy all day long, and the other 3 people had no chance to talk to him. No, Shizo instructor, are we looking for abuse? When Gruss heard that Atlas was here to train with them, as Atlas' roommate, he knew how hard Atlas worked. Coupled with his terrifying talent, his current strength was probably beyond his. It was beyond imagination, and others nodded in agreement. Except for Hina. She has long wanted to test how big the gap between herself and Atlas is, and her eyes only reveal excitement. No, I think you're mistaken. Atlas shook his head in denial. Smoker and others were also slightly stunned. Was a mistake. It's the 7 of you who challenged me. I only used 2 of the 6 postures to cope with it. In fact, Atlas took a trick here. Among the 6 postures, he only practiced Shao and Iron Body to the ultimate level. The other postures were only, it can be said to be sparse and ordinary. What? When the others heard this, a trace of anger suddenly flashed in their eyes. Isn't this looking down on people? Although Atlas can't win one-on-one, can't we beat him in a group fight? The key is that he still needs to suppress his strength. Everyone present is not a fool, so they naturally understand Shizo's good intentions, but they still cannot accept it psychologically. It seems that strength should speak for itself. Atlas looked at the changing expressions of everyone and stopped talking nonsense and directly assumed a posture of being about to fight. Smoker and the others were helpless when they saw this, and immediately they all tensed up. If they were defeated by Atlas like this, they would be embarrassed and thrown into their grandma's house. Kyoyusil. Hina planned to take a preemptive strike and extended fence-like black iron branches from her arms. Within a moment, Atlas was trapped inside. Smoke White Domain. Then Smoker quickly activated his fruit ability, and a large amount of smoke penetrated into the encirclement, trying to besiege Atlas. Bang! 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 Atlas naturally would not sit still and wait for death. The casserole-like fist quickly shattered Hina's black sill with terrifying force. But just when Atlas appeared, a minotaur with horns and a nose appeared in Atlas. Above Lars. Finger Pistol. The huge cow's hooves attacked Atlas with a sharp sound of breaking through the air. I have to say that even Shizo, who was watching the battle from the sidelines, secretly applauded this perfect coordination, but unfortunately, Demon Fruit power. Atlas didn't expect that among the 8 people, there was a Zoan Demon Fruit power, but Atlas was not a vegetarian. Iron Body Komu. Clang. Hulbert felt that his hard ox hoof hit a body other than flesh and blood, like a giant bell. A huge shock force was transmitted from the hoof, and his whole body suddenly trembled. You must know that he is an Esper in the form of Zoan, the cow fruit, and the ox. His strength and physique are not as good as Atlas. Atlas would not let go of Herbert's opportunity to be stunned, even if it was only for a short second. Iron Body Boxing Divine Power. Huge power was released crazily on Herbert's body, and his body in human animal form was like paper flying backwards crazily. Although the others were shocked by this scene, they were not so frightened that they lost all fighting spirit. Fortunately, Herbert Zoan's strong recovery ability did not completely lose the ability to fight, but he could only harass the enemy from the side. Otherwise, it would not be a joke to receive such a punch again. Kiayu Threshold. Hina still wants to repeat her old tricks. How can Atlas give her chance? A red light flashes across her eyes, and the color of the sight is turned on. Chafe, accurately avoiding Hina's fruit power and Smoker's 2 white punches. He teleported to Razanani and 2 other unknown people. There's no way to say that among these 7 people, only 3 of them are the weakest, even if Razanani is a fruit. A person with abilities, after all, his fruit ability is more inclined to assist assassination, and his frontal combat ability is weak. Hey, boss, don't blame me. After all, I don't want to be tortured by you. Suddenly, Gru stood in front of Razanani with this shameless slap in the face. After all, intellectually speaking, Razanani's fruit ability can perfectly protect them. Emotionally speaking, Razanani is also his roommate. He must give priority to saving Razanani. As for the other two, he can't take care of them for the time being. It took Atlas no effort to deal with them, and he only needed 2 punches to knock them out early. Damn it, not long after the battle, they had already lost 2 members, and one was almost dead. The pressure on them suddenly increased. It's my turn to attack. Atlas grinned, revealing a neat row of large white fangs. Under the sunlight, Smoker and others felt dazzled. Shave. Iron body punching technique broken. The target is still Razanani, but at this time Smoker also reacted. Smoke white snake. Snake-shaped white smoke quickly wrapped around Atlas's limbs and torso. Too weak, Atlas ignored Smoker and charged forward with his strong physique, breaking free from the white smoke restraints on his body in an instant. Shaved iron body Jade. Atlas's tall body suddenly spun at high speed, but the target was Gruss. Combat is also an art. This is not just about immersing yourself in recklessness, but also about timing and overall perspective. Chapter 37 Guion, Iron Body. Gruss saw a flash of panic on his face when he saw Atlas attacking him, but then he could only hope that his most accomplished iron body could block it a little. Bang! Without any suspense, Gruss was directly knocked out and fell heavily to the ground like a broken sack, once again losing one man. Seeing this, the remaining 4 people quickly hugged together, almost clinging to each other, not giving Atlas a chance to defeat them one by one, but they were too naive and they knew nothing about Atlas's power. Shaved iron body steel bull. Atlas rushed towards Smoker and others like a crazy bull, and the ground he passed was like soft soil, rolling crazily. Smoke white jade, Jian gun shield. Naturally, Smoker and others would not sit still and wait for death. An iron shield covered with black guns and a wall of white smoke suddenly stood on the road that Atlas must pass through. I have to say that Devil Fruit is indeed a very magical product that can have a major impact on the battle situation even when the strength gap between the 2 sides is not large. It's a pity. The strength gap between them and Atlas is too big. Boom! A huge roar rang in the ears. Smoker's white jade and Hina's gun shield were as if they were made of paper. They were defeated in an instant. Atlas, who was still emasculated, was under the horrified expressions of Smoker and others. After being knocked upside down, they flew backwards one by one, struggling feebly on the ground, but they had lost their ability to fight. Do you understand now? What you should do now is to specialize in the 6 moves that suit you, instead of swallowing them wholeheartedly. Let's see which of you can use the half-baked 6 moves completely. Fortunately, the one you are fighting against today is your pal Zay. If on the battlefield, what you lose is not just your face, but your life. Shizo on the side was stunned when he saw that everyone was defeated so neatly, but he still walked forward quickly and poured chicken soup at Smoker and others, for fear of hitting them too hard. Then, Senior Shizo, I will go back first. Don't forget your promise. Alice saw that Smoker and others were fine, so he said hello to Shizo and said he was leaving first. Well, don't worry. Finger pistol AK-47. The heavy and clear sound of gunshots resounded in the sky above the school grounds. Marines who were coming and going turned a blind eye to this and were still busy with their own affairs. Since the last fight with Smoker and the others, Atlas has spent more than 2 hours sparring with Shizo almost every day. As a result, Atlas has become more and more comfortable in using the 6 forms. Shizo, who was opposite Atlas, had a look of helplessness on his face. I am afraid that only Shizo, who is now sparring with Atlas every day, clearly knows how terrifying Atlas' current strength is, especially the kind of improvement. The speed simply overturned his understanding of monsters. Shizo was obviously able to suppress Atlas a little with Haki at the beginning, but now he is having more and more difficulty fighting. It feels like Atlas's physique is growing every minute. In fact, Atlas was also very surprised. I don't know if he was beaten too much after coming to the headquarters. He felt that the digestion speed of the cow talisman was much faster. Atlas had a hunch that it would not be long before he could completely digest the cow charm. The spell has been cast, and his body is growing at an extremely terrifying speed. From a most intuitive point of view, Atlas' current height of 2.8 meters actually reaches an astonishing weight of 300 kilograms. If he could return to life now, he would find that the number and density of bones and muscles in his body are far higher than ordinary people. Boom! Another collision. Atlas stood unscathed, not even moving his feet, and Shizo's fist was clearly covered in armed color. By the way, you kid, why haven't you awakened your weapon color yet? Shizo said helplessly. Huh, you and Mr. Zephyr didn't teach me either. Atlas spread his hands, also feeling a little headache. Although he had some knowledge about Conqueror's Haki, he only had a rough look at the anime in his previous life, and no one told him about it when he came to the recruit camp. Really? Maybe. I forgot. A trace of embarrassment appeared on Shizo's big black face unconsciously. Fortunately, at this time, an assistant not far away came over and relieved Shizo's embarrassment. Report to Shizo instructor. Guion Rear Admiral went to Zephyr Chief Instructor's office. Shizo nodded and said to Atlas, Okay, I will explain Haki to you next time when I have time. I will introduce you to a swordsman first. Atlas had clearly heard what his assistant said and knew that Guion had come to the recruiting camp. Atlas didn't know much about this admiral candidate named Momonosuke in the future. He only knew that she should also be a great swordsman in the future. Even if she was slightly worse than admiral, she was still very powerful. According to this time, Guion should be promoted to vice admiral soon. After all, in terms of strength, she has undoubtedly reached the vice admiral level. But she has not yet reached the level of elite vice admiral, but her attainments in swordsmanship are better than, there is no doubt that Russ is strong. In Zephyr's office, Guion is sitting on a chair with his legs crossed in a cross-legged posture, revealing the spider tattoo on his long white legs. The famous sword Kimpira is placed casually next to him, and his delicate face is full of smiles and roundness. Her red lips opened and closed as she chatted and laughed with Zephyr. Long time no see, Mr. Zephyr. I see you're in a good mood recently. Is there any great talent coming to the recruiting camp? Zephyr also smiled and said, It's true, that Atlas guy is an even bigger monster than Kazan and the others. Oh, then I want to see what kind of monster can make teacher Zephyr value so much. Guion's eyes lit up, and her interest in Atlas, who she had not yet met, suddenly increased. She knew that Zephyr was not the kind of person who makes random decisions. Just in time, speaking of Atlas, I would like to ask you for a favor. Zephyr said slyly. This child Atlas is not only a genius in physical skills, but also talented in swordsmanship. So I ask you to take the time to teach this child swordsmanship. Seeing that Guion had no objection, Zephyr continued. No problem. I happen to be very interested in that boy. And if there is an additional senior combatant in this department, it will alleviate a lot of pressure. I can also relax a bit. Maybe I still have time to take a vacation. As he spoke, Guion stretched sleepily, revealing his perfect body curves. Chapter 38, Swordsmanship Lessons, dong 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 dong. Come in. Shizo and Atlas walked into Zephyr's office one after another. Teacher Zephyr, Shizo said hello to Zephyr first, and then said to Guion, who stood up, Long time no see. Guion Rear Admiral, you are still so beautiful. Haha. Thank you for the compliment, Mr. Shizo. Guion replied politely. In fact, she and Shizo didn't have much interaction. They just came from Zephyr's sect together, so they were just acquaintances. Oh, by the way, I will introduce you to a swordsman genius. Please help teach him, Shizo said, pulling out Atlas behind him to introduce him to Guion. Guion was a little stunned for a moment, then looked at each other in understanding with Zephyr, covered his mouth, and said with a smile, You must be talking about the monster genius that Mr. Zephyr calls Atlas. I just talked about Atlas with Guion, but I didn't expect you. Zephyr said helplessly but proudly. Guion was obviously also very curious and started to look at Atlas up and down. The man in front of her looks to be about 18 years old. He is basically the same height as her. He is full of muscles but does not look bloated at all. Instead, he has a sense of strength and beauty. Some of his damaged clothes indicate that he has just experienced a battle. He probably came over after sparring with Shuzo, and then turned his attention to third-generation Kitetsu on Atlas's waist. Demon Sword. Gion looked at Atlas with a somewhat surprised expression. You know, there are very few swordsmen who use demon swords as their own sabers, and many swordsmen even avoid them. That's right, third-generation ghost. Atlas said the first words he entered the office, and then slowly pulled out third-generation ghost from his waist. The cold light gives the illusion of lighting up the office. What a knife! Seeing this scene, Gion couldn't help but exclaimed in admiration. The quality of this knife was top-notch, even among the high-quality swords. Okay, don't show off your sword there, Gion. You happen to have nothing to do these days, so you can come over to the recruiting camp and teach them sword skills. Zephyr said seriously. In fact, there are swordsmanship instructors in the recruitment camp, but they can only teach some relatively simple things, and Atlas has become a swordsman. The swordsmanship instructor himself has not reached the level of cutting iron, so now Atlas's swordsmanship, there has been little progress. Don't worry, Teacher Zephyr. I happen to have to stay in the headquarters for a while after this mission, so I will come over and bother you. Teacher Zephyr. Gion has no objection. They are originally from the recruitment camp, and the people who come out of the recruitment camp are Marines' future and fresh blood. It is also one of their responsibilities to help the recruits grow. After all, this is how Marine is making its way in the world step by step. Pass down. The next day, at the recruit training camp, the recruits who had just completed their physical training quickly formed a neat square formation. The original swordsmanship instructors were standing aside obediently, but Atlas didn't know them very well because he had never taken swordsmanship classes since he came to the recruiting camp. Standing in front of the school field was the Gion Rear Admiral. Hello, everyone. I am your new swordsmanship instructor, Gion, and my current position is the Rear Admiral of the headquarters, Gion said with a smile as he looked at the recruits who were standing solemnly. Now, people who want to learn swordsmanship come out. Soon people came out quickly, not many, only about 40 people. Although some people were a little moved when they saw the beautiful instructor, they did not dare to joke about their future. You must know that the choice of weapons has a decisive impact on future development. Critical. Very good. Then those who have a foundation in swordsmanship stand on my left side, and those who have no foundation on my sword stand on my right side. Gion nodded with satisfaction. With her knowledge, and color, she could clearly tell who was. She was satisfied that she had not seen such a person yet. The time I am here to teach you swordsmanship is limited. In order to maximize your benefits, those who have no basic skills will first learn from your original swordsmanship instructor. Gion's arrangement is very reasonable. After all, it is impossible with her swordsmanship level. Go to the recruitment camp and teach them the basics. Otherwise, it's just killing a chicken with a sledgehammer. Very good. Now those who have the basic knowledge come with me. Atlas and others silently followed Gion to a corner of the school grounds. This is the area dedicated to practicing swordsmanship. Now I want to test your swordsmanship. You find your own opponents to spar with each other. I will watch from the sidelines. Gion paused and continued. You have to use a real sword. Wow! The recruits were obviously a little surprised because they usually use bamboo knives for sparring, and safety is not adequately guaranteed when sparring with real knives. What? Do you have any objections? When Gion heard the recruits' uproar, he immediately stopped smiling and asked with squinted eyes. You must know that she's not a flower vase. Her position as Rear Admiral is obtained by actual military merits, and behind these military achievements are the corpses of pirates that can be piled up in mountains. Yes, the recruits responded quickly when they saw something was wrong with Gion's face. Bang, clang, clang. Soon, after bursts of sounds of gold and iron, the battle among the recruits ended in a hurry, and Atlas stood alone. It wasn't that he didn't want to join the battle, but that there was no one at all. Come and be his opponent. I just took a look. First of all, you need to practice your basic swordsmanship again. Secondly, Your swords have no murderous intent or bloodiness. My swordsmanship was honed on the battlefield. It is a killing sword. Gion, he looked at the people who had stopped and commented. Now, Atlas comes out. Fight me, and let me see your swordsmanship. Yes. Atlas quickly stepped out. The famous sword Kimpura, the great sword of Timritsu with 21 skills. I didn't find out what level Gion's sword is, but the sword used by the candidate admiral should not be that bad. Gion gently stroked the blade of the sword. Introduced to Atlas. The one who responded to Gion was third-generation Kitetsu, which Atlas slowly pulled out. Yidaliu Xingluo. A slash was directed straight towards Gion. This star-falling move was made to simulate the force of a falling meteor. It could be said to be a move that combines strength and explosive power. Well done. Gion's eyes suddenly lit up, and armament haki instantly wrapped around Kinpyra from his wrist. One sword style, steel cutting flash. Chapter 39 Conqueror's Haki. See Circle Calendar December 1503, Marineford. Since the last time Gion came to the recruiting camp as a swordsmanship instructor, Atlas's sparring partner has also changed from Shizo to Gion. After such a long period of training, Atlas also completely digested the ox talisman and seamlessly connected it with a rabbit talisman. As he expected, the rabbit talisman was mainly to strengthen his lower limbs. It can be said that now the power of trust is no less than that of the Naval Headquarters Vice Admiral, and his power is still increasing at a terrifying speed. In the pirate world, strong men like Garp and Zephyr generally have relatively strong upper bodies. It does not mean that their lower limbs are weak, but that their organs are very powerful. And now Atlas also has that's the tendency, but the rabbit charm balances his physical strength well. As for the level of swordsmanship, according to Gion, Atlas's swordsmanship style tends to focus on large openings and closings, with insufficient microcontrol, and is suitable for overwhelming people with force. At this stage, Atlas is mainly doing polishing his body and has no idea of eating devil fruit for the time being. He doesn't want to create a weakness for himself unless he encounters a very powerful devil fruit. And Atlas had a hunch that he was just one step away from armament haki awakening. The beach behind a recruit camp. Zephyr's body is straight and facing the sea. This former Marine Admiral is still shining for a just cause even after retirement. So much so that his temperament changed drastically after he was betrayed by the justice he believed in, and he fell into extreme thoughts. It has to be said that the decisions of the world government are very wise. It can only be said that the thinking of politicians is different from that of normal people. Same. Even if Atlas doesn't agree with his concept of justice, he still has to admire his character. He will not let Zephyr fall into this situation in his later years. Teacher Zephyr, I heard that you are looking for me. Atlas, who was training, was summoned here by Shizo, and he is still confused. I plan to explain to you some training about haki today. Originally, this was supposed to be the content of the third year, but your body has already met the conditions for awakening haki. Zephyr heard Atlas' arrival. He turned around and said, "Oh, then it's up to you, Teacher Zephyr." Atlas said with a serious look, understanding. Now haki is the last shortcoming in his strength. To put it simply, even if his current physical strength and power level have reached the level of the Vice Admiral, he is still no match for the Vice Admiral. Moreover, if he encounters Logia, he can only be beaten passively. Even if he wants to win, he can only win. Rely on physical strength to grind the enemy to death. Haki is a power hidden in everyone's body. It is divided into three types: haki, armed, and overlord. Zephyr paused and continued. You have awakened to haki. I believe I don't need to elaborate too much. As for armament haki, its function is to improve personal defense. It is equivalent to wearing a layer of invisible armor on the body. It can also evolve into attack power. It can also help you contact the entity of Logia Demon Fruit power. The armor color can be obtained through practice. Keep increasing the quality and quantity of haki. Armed SX is also called a mission in Wazigwo, just like seeing and hearing SX is called Heartnet in Sky Island. To be specific, there are 3 levels in the training of armed colors. These levels are actually just the skills of using armed colors. The most important thing is the quality and quantity of your armed colors. The first level is hardening and entangling. It can only be hardened initially, and then through practice, the weapon can be entangled. The second level is to expose the weapon color. What is different from the first level is that the weapon at this stage, the color, does not need to be in direct contact with the object being attacked. The principle of the third level of armed color is to make the armed color flow, so as to achieve the effect of internal destruction. I know a little bit about this atlas. Jean Mamamoru's Asakura alone is the second stage of armed color. No wonder he has always claimed that he is the most defensive man in the world. Although it is a bit exaggerated, it also covers it up. It can't be said that he is powerful in armed colors. Actually, most people in the world only have the first level of weaponry, but the strong one must be the Grandmaster. Zephyr looked at Atlas, who was meditating, and added, "Don't worry, Teacher Zephyr. I know the importance of armed color." Atlas smiled when he heard this. He knew that Zephyr was afraid that he would underestimate the cultivation of armed color and deliberately reminded him. "Well, it's good that you understand." Zephyr was somewhat relieved and continued. "Conqueror's Haki is the most unreasonable type of Conqueror's Haki because not everyone is conquerors and the qualification requirements are very strict. There are only 1 million people. There is only one awakened, one among them, Conqueror's Haki. Among the Marines, only Sengoku is the only one, but among the pirates, the owner of Conquerors is like a crucian carp crossing the river." Zephyr said with a look of anger on his face, obviously very helpless about this situation. Furthermore, Conquerors can also be entangled like the weapon color. But this is a skill that only top experts can understand. Ordinary pirates like that are just indulging in the glory of Conquerors. Atlas nodded in agreement. In the original work, Kaido only used Conqueror's entanglement to give King Luffy a king addiction. As for others, it is estimated that no one else has touched this field. Actually, in my opinion, the so-called Conqueror's Haki is just the spirit, body, and will, which respectively correspond to the color of knowledge, color of weapons, and conquerors. The sight color uses the seventh sense besides your six senses, which is spiritual perception, and consumes your spirit. The arming color is closely related to your body, and it can only be awakened with enough physical strength. The same is true for armament Hakis. The total amount is also related to your physique. Conquerors is a manifestation of will, which can have a shocking effect on the enemy. Zephyr continued to throw out his dry information to Atlas, and Atlas also listened with interest. This was the experience and insights of a ceiling-level strongman. No one elsewhere was so open to him. Broken to pieces, Atlas naturally treasured it very much and wished he could write it down word for word. If you don't have Conqueror's qualifications, you might as well ask that old guy Garp for advice. Zephyr looked at Atlas, who looked serious, and nodded with satisfaction. Doesn't Vice Admiral Garp not have Conquerors? Atlas was a little confused. He had never heard of Garp having Conqueror's Haki in his previous life. You should have felt Garp's so-called Iron Fist of Love. Zephyr teased. Naturally, he had read the information about Atlas when he entered the camp, and he also knew that he was on Garp's ship. Come to the headquarters. Chapter 40 Year-End Assessment. Garp's Iron Fist of Love is actually a kind of entanglement of will. According to Garp, it is a fist filled with love. So even if he doesn't have Conquerors, he can still use it with similar effects. Explain clearly to Atlas. In fact, every top fighter in the sea is not only the best in the world in terms of physical fitness and hockey, but also has his own unique special skills. Like Black Arm Zephyr, his weapon color is definitely the best in the sea, while Iron Fist Garp is good at using the entanglement of will. As for how to guide the armed color, during this period, you can add a training item every day and let Shizo hit you with the armed color. This is the most intuitive way for you to feel the armed color. Zephyr said in the calmest tone, in the most horrific way. In fact, Zephyr also came up with the most suitable method based on Atlas's physical condition. That is, Atlas's monster-like recovery ability can withstand it. If it were Smoker and the others, they might be destroyed directly. Today is the annual assessment time for the recruit camp, and all the recruits have been called together. It can be said that this is the most uneasy time for recruits because everyone is told that they only have one chance to repeat a grade before entering the camp. So for those who want to hang around and are not very talented, this is a daunting challenge. This year-end assessment is mainly based on the list of pairs provided by the instructor. After all, the instructor who is still a subordinate during the training knows their strength best, so the allocated opponents are relatively reasonable. Several temporary arenas were built on the recruitment camp's campus. Although they were temporary structures, they were still not strong enough to be destroyed by the Marines in the recruitment camp. Don't underestimate the productivity of the pirate world. Not to mention that this place is still naval headquarters, where Superman walks everywhere Marineford. In front of the arena are rows of stands, arranged in a trapezoidal shape from high to low. Sitting on the top is Admiral of Headquarters Sengoku, who is also the only current Marine Admiral. At this time, Kong no longer manages Marine very much. It can be said that the internal transfer of power within Marine has been completed, and Marine's investiture ceremony will begin only when the appointment of world government arrives. Next to Sengoku is Kizuru Vice Admiral, who has a wretched look and wears brown sunglasses. As for the other two monsters, Vice Admiral is temporarily absent from the headquarters due to mission reasons. Even Akiji Kazan, whom Atlas met before entering the camp, is not there. Gulme, of course, Guion Rear Admiral, who temporarily stayed in the recruiting camp as a swordsman instructor and Atlas's sparring partner, also came to the school grounds to watch this noisy end-of-year assessment. As for the other three generals and officers, Atlas was not very familiar with them, so he couldn't even name them. Others in the recruit camp were a little excited. After all, it was rare to see so many Marine generals at once, especially Sengoku, who was the most powerful Marine. Even the recruits from the headquarters had never seen them so close. Saw Sengoku. Wow, that's Sengoku Admiral. It's the first time I've seen a real person. It's really majestic. Why haven't I seen Vice Admiral Garp? His Kizuru Vice Admiral is here too, but why do I feel that Kizuru Vice Admiral is getting more and more handsome the more I look at him? I don't know which cutie said the last sentence. Atlas can only say that he has a unique vision. Soon, Zephyr and Shizo appeared in front of the recruits. After nodding slightly with Sengoku, he looked at the recruits who were whispering. Everyone is here. Silence. Arrange your team now. As soon as they heard Zephyr's order, the recruits quickly stood up in line like a conditioned reflex, and their movements were uniform and without any confusion. This made Zephyr nod with satisfaction and continued.
No more novels? Take part in the voting. The most requested novels and those with the most likes will be chosen for publication on euroaudiobooks.com. There, I can upload as much as I want without the risk of receiving a strike. Our 18 novels and other content that exceed what is morally acceptable are only published on Patreon or the free novels page. Remember, the site is funded by donations on Ko-fi and Patreon memberships.